We're ready when you are.
Okay. Good afternoon. Welcome to Monday, February 23rd, 2026, meeting of the Measure U Community Advisory Committee. This meeting is now called to order. Will the clerk please call roll and establish quorum?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Commissioners, if you can please unmute your microphones. Vice Chair McGee.
Present.
Commissioner Smith is currently absent. Commissioner Sala is currently absent. Commissioner Cook.
Present.
Commissioner Miller.
Present.
Commissioner Johnston.
Present.
Commissioner Boris is currently absent. Commissioner Novello.
Present.
Commissioner Jarofsky.
Present.
Commissioner Pashal.
Present.
Commissioner Freilukas.
Present.
Commissioner Rosa is currently absent. And Chair Georgioff.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
I would like to remind members of the public in chambers that if you would like to speak on an agenda item, please turn in a speaker slip when the item begins. You'll have 2 minutes to speak once you are called on. After the first speaker, we will no longer accept speaker slips. We will now proceed with today's agenda. Let's see who's next. I guess Member Noveo, would you be willing to lead us in the Sacramento Indigenous People tribute and as well as the pledge?
Please rise to the opening acknowledgement in honor of the Sacramento Indigenous people and the tribal lands, to the original people of this land, to the Nizam people, the Southern Maidu Valley, and the Pins Mihawks, and the Winton people, and the people of the Wilson Rancheria, Sacramento only federally recognized tribe. May we acknowledge and honor the Native people who came before us and still walk beside us today, and these ancestral lands by choosing to gather together today in the active practice of acknowledgement and appreciation of Sacramento Indigenous people's history, contributions, and lives. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic to which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Member Noveo. Our first business item today is approval of the consent calendar. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item?
Thank you, Chair. We have no speakers.
Okay. Do I have anyone who wants to speak on this? Just to note, there is actually a third item on this, which typically isn't there, which is the dissolution of the 2025 annual report ad hoc. We talked about it last meeting, but just wanted to call it out. Do I have a first and a second?
I'll be first.
I'll second.
Great. And Member Pascal. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any abstain or any refusal? Cool. All right, then we can move on to the discussion calendar. We have some lovely people of the city joining us today. So we'll start with that. The Department of Information Technology, please. Welcome, welcome.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Mridul Sadanandan, Assistant Director with Information Technology Department. I'm here to provide a brief overview on the Measure U contributions that support the IT operations. I have a 3-slide presentation, and after that, available to answer any questions you have. IT department serves as an operational backbone for the city, supporting every operation by providing reliable services, applications, and modernized technology. We manage critical operations like public safety, provide support for the payroll operation, finance, permitting, utility billing, customer service, and digital services. In addition, City's 311 non-emergency call center is also part of the IT department. 311 serves as a friend point of contact for the department by providing residents who are seeking information, reporting concerns, or requesting services. As you can see on the slide, there is 202 full-time positions in the IT department, of which 21.5 is dedicated for the 311 operation. The total operating budget of the department is $37.4 million. 21.6 million is general funded, and 15.9 is from inter-department transfer and offsets. 94% of the department annual budget is allocated for the employee services. So the measure support 3 programs in the IT department. First one is the 311 operation. The 6 positions in the 311 operation is through Measure. This was approved in mid-year budget of 2019. Hiring was completed in April 2nd, 2019 for those 6 positions. Prior to approving this 6 position, average wait time was around 8 minutes and 55 seconds for citizens on the line, on the 311 line. And total ticket service request handled was around 400,000, 5,000 service requests. Past 12 months following filling the 6 positions, the average time reduced to 3 minutes and 28 seconds, and the total service request handled increased to 465,000 calls. This position enabled 311 to operate and improve the service level by reducing the call wait time in the peak time. The annual Measure contribution was $377,000 and $238,000. The second item is Measure funding a 0.25 FTE for supporting the regional support, which serves the primary contact for internal support service for the staff. So this includes the service desk, fixing the computers, software support, asset management, IT asset management, mobile devices, and things like that. And the annual contribution is $35,000 for that problem. The third item is almost a 0.25 FTE in the IT regional support, the same division, to supporting the police body-worn camera. Annual contribution is $38,477. The total Measure contribution annually for the IT department is approximately $450,000 and $685. 311 is the key area where the Measure contribution happens. 311 is considered as a front door for the non-emergency call center for city, providing service to the residents, business, and visitors for requesting services, reporting problems, or obtaining information from the city. 311 also support the dispatching function for almost 10 departments where there is emergency calls, and they ready in the request for taking care of the issues. In the last 12 months, 311 has 575 ticket service requests open with an average wait time of 2 minutes and 6 seconds. This attributes to most of the wait time reduction is mostly because of the hour changes in our operation, 311 operation. That's end my presentation. I'm here to answer any question.
Yeah, commissioners, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to queue up. Member Pascal?
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation and the brevity. I guess one question I'm trying to get my mind around how the budgeting works and how is it decided, like, what dollars are reported in the IT department versus, like, if I call and I say there's a leak in my the water line outside my house, which is something I've called before, and 311's very responsive, so thank you. But are all of the costs for the actual, the dispatch and all that is accounted for in the IT budget, but once you hand it over to, say, the utility department or whatever, they pick up the cost from there? Like, where do you draw the line on where it appears in the budget? It's just kind of a foundational question.
311 operation is a special scenario where what we do is we look at the total number of calls and we divvy up the cost and we look at the total cost for operation by total employees and all that, and we say, okay, $1 million is the total cost and we got 1 million calls, so that's almost like $1, right? Okay. And we take that and look at how many of these calls are enterprise funded. So for like solid waste, parking, those funds, it goes to, based on the percentage, they get assigned that cost.
Oh, okay.
The rest of them goes to the general fund, and this particular position was specifically for general fund, the 6 positions we talked about.
Understood. So there's been, I assume, had an increased call volume because the city has been directing, I know, people who are calling about, like, unhoused people, for example, to call 311 for a response from Department of Community Response. So you apportion the the percentage of calls related to that to Department of Community Response, for example? Okay.
Yep. So there is multiple reasons the number of calls increases for the city. One is the population is increasing. So if you look at 2019 to now, it's the ongoing increases. So that is an ongoing thing. We look at different ways, like what is the right time, where is the maximum call coming in. The last change we did was instead of having staff 24/7 available, we looked at the data and said, like, most of the calls are coming from 7 to 7. So why are we having multiple staff at late night? So let's reduce that and put it in during time, so that drastically reduced our call wait time. So we look at the data. We also look at technology, for example. We have a virtual agent kind of handles a lot of call deflections. We receive calls which are related to county. So we realize that people are standing in the line for no reason to transfer the call. So we take that as an opportunity to put AI in the front of it and said, answer the question, look at the geographically where they're calling from and what service they're looking for, and deflect them. We get called for SMART, PG&E, County of Sacramento. So we deflect a lot of calls related to that. So it saves a lot of time for the city.
Thank you.
Member McGee?
Hi, thank you so much. So I'm really happy that you kind of talked about AI, because that was kind of my questioning. I love, everything is moving agentic now, right? In terms of AI and service calls. So is there any planned upgrades or structural upgrades to 311, to the IT department that's coming, that's going to possibly either detract from operations or enhance operations? Like, what could we expect? And is there a line item in the budget for that continual AI infrastructure upgrade to kind of manage the increased volumes and all the different, calls that are coming through?
So we are one of the few agencies. We already have a virtual agent where you talk to natural conversation with the system, already in place in production for last 3-4 years. We see close to 4 FTE worth of work done by that agent on a regular basis. So the next step for us is to modernize our basic phone system. That's in the part of a budget request for next cycle. It's already there. So our goal is to actually modernize the phone system, which is used at the 311, which will come with a lot of AI features. So virtual agent, like what we call as the new LLM models and the AI, agentic AI, those things will be coming in the future here. We are planning for all that.
And can I ask then a follow-up question? Like, what does that rollout timeline look for you? Like, obviously it's not going to be tomorrow, but like, what is the continuous plan to kind of streamline that and have that rolled out where it's not impactful to, the actual services, but continuous upgrading?
The first step is to actually get through the budget process to get the budget approved for it. We are internally also evaluating various products in the market and to kind of in preparation for it, hoping that we'll have the funding for it to prepare for that upgrade. Once we have the funding, we'll go through the exercise of are we just modernizing 311? Because we have multiple call centers within the city. Like if we call utilities for bill questions, so it'll go to DOU. If you have revenue bills, it'll go to revenue. So our goal is to consolidate all that into one call center. One number where it doesn't matter what department, or if you have a question on permitting, you don't have to figure out what number to call. So it'll be centralized to 1311 number. That's our bigger goal to achieve here also. Yeah, so I don't have the timeline at this point, sorry.
Thank you. Great answer.
Member Cook or Miller?
Thanks for the breakdown, and congrats on cutting the average wait time from 8 minutes to 4. That was a big deal, so kudos to that. This is more of like maybe a platform or software question on 311. I noticed like we're all told to go to 311, submit the ticket, look at the 311 portal for status update, etc. But like that portal lacks the fidelity on actual details of the ticket. So for example, you go to 311, you submit a ticket gets closed. Like there's no like details surrounding the closure of the ticket that are available on the public portal. Like it's truly closed, you know what I mean? Yep. So you end up getting a call 311, getting an explanation, it's hit or miss. I'm just curious, is there like a path forward to actually expose the details underlying the ticket to the public portal such that you can get more insight without having to call in?
Yes. So the quick answer is yes. 311 is only responsible for taking that call from the customers or residents and passing that to the departments. And the department actually process that, whatever business process they have. So we have a project going on, which is a multi-year project where we're working with each department and actually look at the business process and kind of update back to the 311. So that this information can be shared with the citizens. So we recently completed for the DCR, because that was the high volume call, where we can provide those information back. Right now, we are working with animal care, is the next one we are working on at this point. So it is going to take a while for us to work with every department actually to process that, how they are processing it, why are they closing without responding to the citizen, duplicate calls, those kind of things, yeah.
Yeah, DCR is actually the department in question. You submit a ticket for like homeless support, et cetera. Ticket gets closed, but, the ticket may or may not be actually resolved. So without that details in the portal, there really is no insight. So you think that will be ready for prime time in the coming weeks, months?
Coming months, actually.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Great. I just have one final question, very similar to Member McGee's question, which is around the AI adoption. You mentioned that you're sort of waiting for budget for these things. Is it not possible to start quite small and like maybe divert some of the current budget we have towards like these robo-answering channels and have maybe just 2 or 3% go to like this new system and a very small budget trial and error or A/B test type situation? Is that a thing that's possible, or do you feel like you have to go and get a large sort of budget approval to like overhaul a whole system?
It is possible, and I think we did a little bit of that already. We launched an internal employee-only AI chatbot. The next phase of that was we tested that for almost 6 months to make sure it's not going to give wrong answers, hallucination and all that. And if you look at our public website now, there is an AI summary comes out of it also, which is kind of a A/B testing for us to see how it is responding. So if you go to 311 mobile app or 311, where you ask for a claim form versus you go to website, you'll get a human almost response now. So that was our A/B testing, trying it out and say how it is. And we are trying to bring that to our mobile app, 311 mobile app also at this point. So we are working on small enhancements throughout this process while we are waiting for a big funding.
All right, so it sounds like you guys have already sort of tested this out and you feel comfortable moving forward with, I guess, smarter AIs or LLM-based AIs to do the answering rather than just the existing tech you guys have now.
Yeah.
Okay. And so would it not be possible then to just slowly diverge the current budget that we, again, are having towards these older systems to the new one without getting new budget? You see where my question is going?
Yeah. No, I don't. Because the underlying technology itself, there is a phone system and a contact center application that cannot support some of these AI capabilities. Some of the integrations we would really want to build with that phone call, virtual conversations. Like, for example, we really want to build where if somebody's talking in Spanish, we can always, agent can talk in English. So, and there is back and forth communication and real-time translations happening.
Sure, sure.
So those require real infrastructure changes.
Yep. Okay. Sounds good. Are there any further questions from? Okay. Then I think we can move on. Thank you very much for your presentation, and appreciate you coming in. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item?
We do not have any speakers.
Excellent. Then we can move on. I believe next is the fire department presentation. This is specific to the diversity and outreach, not the overtime specific, like, budget of Measure U. Okay.
Yeah.
Any particular reason why we're doing it that way, or are you guys going to come back so we can ask questions on the other one, or, yeah, just,
We can come back
okay, fair enough.
later. I just wanted to take a moment to introduce Assistant Chief Kim Iannucci. Kim has been the brainchild of the Door Division, and she has prepared a slideshow for you this evening. So I'll be with her here, but she's going to take you through the slides.
Okay, welcome.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Measure U Commission, I really appreciate the opportunity to present some of the overview of our Measure U funded Diversity Outreach and Recruitment Division. My name's Kim Iannucci. I'm an assistant chief that oversees the division, and I've been with the department for a pretty long time. Since 1981, I'll let you do the math. We'll be presenting outcomes achieved, recent adjustments, and forward considerations as a result of the Measure U funding. So Measure U funding enabled the Sacramento Fire Department to operationalize the city's commitment to workforce equity. It was prompted by a 2020 audit findings and council priorities. It was designed as a 3-year phase-in project. We were able to receive funding for phases 1 and 2. The funds provided by the Measure U Advisory Commission helped us create capacity to build long-term workforce pipelines. I pulled some 2025 audit of our diversity, and you could see, and this is for all 600 sworn firefighters and sworn employees with the department. The BIPOC numbers have increased. We're still at 4% women. Then if you look at the window of 2021 through 2025, the more recent hires, you can see that the diversity has improved quite a bit more, and we're at 5% more women. So it takes while we're doing better hiring, it still takes a while to affect 600 people strong. So again, Measure U built operational capacity. This was our fully staffed model up through fiscal year 25 that enabled the running of comprehensive workforce and youth pipeline programs. We have adult pipeline programs, which we had 1 captain and 2 firefighters. We have youth pipeline programs with 1 captain and 1 firefighter. And then we have our administration with myself, a program supervisor, and an admin tech. We were covering some limited CTE support for high school. That was going to be fully built out in year 3, in phase 3 of the program. And all door staff supported things like Girls Camp and our SAC Fire pathway, as well as recruitment efforts overall. So showing measurable workforce outcomes is important to justify why we're here. And so we focus on outcomes such as academic improvement for the program participants, certifications and licenses that have been achieved, as well as the internal hiring pipeline impact. All the programs supporting our expanded EMS delivery models for the Sacramento Fire Department. Sacramento Fire Department has been doing a lot of innovative community medical services, and we have now moved into a single role hiring model, ambulance model for paramedic and EMTs that only work on a medic, as well as our dual role firefighter, EMT, paramedics. We have a mobile crisis unit in our community medical services. We have street overdose response team, mobile integrated health, a lot of very community-facing out in the street with the community programs. And our programs help support that, and it's important having a more diverse workforce that's out on the street supporting the community medical services. So this illustration shows some of our programs and illustrates the diversity and the return on investment through various pipeline programs. If you look at the column on your left, that would be youth programs. The column on the right is adult programs. The top row is Measure U funded programs. The bottom row are grant funded programs that we've been able to lean into because of the Measure U funding. So we've got a lot of great things. We've already, from Youth Academy, we've had our first hired paramedic who's gone through several of our pipelines and is working as a paramedic on a single role ambulance. We've hired 44 EMS interns. That's kind of our capstone program. That's the one that they roll out of and straight into one of the career positions. We do a lot of screening with them, so they meet the same standard as a sworn firefighter, career firefighter, or career EMT paramedic. So they're able, once they complete everything, once they get their paramedic certification, to roll right into that career position. The high school CTE pathway, we were successful with the Children's Fund grant, Measure L, and so we were able this year to implement two positions, one at Valley High and one at Intercom High School. And so that has really exploded the number of young people that we're able to reach out to. And another funded program is Sacramento EMS Corps. And that was another an EDD, Employee Development Department grant. And it's for young people age 18 to 26 who meet what are typically called WIOA, or Workforce Innovative Opportunity Act guidelines, for having higher needs and maybe being impacted in various ways, system impacted, justice involved youth, things like that. And so we have our second cohort already, and it graduates at the end of March. So this slide illustrates pipeline in action. Our Firefighter Youth Academy, the current class that's going right now, Cadet Class 7, demonstrates a measurable conversion from Girls Camp to the Youth Academy pipeline. 50% of the girls we hired were from Girls Camp. So the influencing factors were we realigned, we were doing the camps in fall and realigned it to spring, because that's when recruitment started with our youth academy. And so those young girls were, still had it fresh in their mind, and we were able to get them to, if they were interested, to sign up right there at camp on that day. Unfortunately, Girls Camp was discontinued following staffing reductions for this fiscal year. So what's really important to see here is Measure U has been a multiplier. We were able to, we had a $3.9 million operating budget in fiscal year 25. That's 8 staff FTEs, as well as 20 half-time EMS trainees. And then through that, we were able to leverage funding for another $3.6 million in grant funding for the programs that I was talking to you about. So Measure U funding didn't just support programs. It positioned the department to secure over $3.6 million in competitive external funding, supporting our paramedic pipeline and underserved youth. Grants are time-limited but designed to build long-term workforce capacity. This shows the staffing changes with the fiscal year 25-26 adjustments. We lost two staff positions. We had to adjust the program based off of, to create alignment with the Sacramento, with the pipeline programs and Sacramento Fire Department's emergency response system stability. With that, that impacted the programs that are listed up there that we can't fully support, other than the high school pathway, because we got the Measure L funding. So we had the OT budget reduced, our internal OT budget, that's part of our funding, but OT expenditures have increased because our staff is stretched a lot farther. The reduction in gains made in the door affects our community. Here's a budget snapshot of fiscal year 25 versus 26. It represents overall door funding reductions in areas in impact. I can get a lot more granular with this, but this is just an overview of the change. So this is, showing us the commitment versus capacity. We have a number of active commitments. maintaining the current programs that we're still supporting, the EMS training program and the Youth Academy, as well as the grant programs that we've received funding for. We also provide paramedic scholarships when we have had excess funds from Measure U. We put those funds into a multi-year operational project. And so EMTs within the fire department, if they upgrade, they have to show proof that they have upgraded from EMT to paramedic. They get $3,500. It's $15,000 to go to paramedic school, but it helps. Every little bit helps. When we put in for these grants, we leverage the admin staff in our minds as 8 full-time positions, not 6 that we're at now. And so it's caused some strain within our office. So when we're looking at the outlooks looking forward, sustainability, we have partnerships. We have partnerships for the EMS Corps with an organization called Public Works Alliance. We also partner with Youth Forward, local Sacramento CBO. They've been really key in helping us get community connected. They help us recruit for the program and so they know all the CBOs. The CBOs bring us the kids. We don't go looking for them, and they know the kids that need us most. And then the Children's Fund grant has potential to extend beyond 3 years if we can show some true return on investment, which I'm pretty certain we will be able to. As far as paramedic pipelines, we have our girls' camp, Fire Youth Academy, high school CTEs, and the EMS Corps. We're starting to see these young people get careers. We've had 11 EMS trainees already have promoted into career positions from our department. That's like 30% of those that we were able to retain. We are able to overhire with EMS trainees because everybody moves in and out of the program at different times, even though they may have been hired at the same time, because we meet them where they're at. If we hire an 18-year-old, they don't have any college units yet, and we have to get them certain certifications. And so we're able to overhire to project like, okay, we're going to lose 3 or 4 out to the field. They're going to get promoted. We need to make sure that we can overhire that. And that's also how we use the MyOp funds. We have continued diversity gains, as I demonstrated on the second slide. And while we can't support some of our previous programs, the added grant programs have helped offset some of those losses. Also, we have a consultant called Behavior Leader that has a 5-year training program with us. They did a staff survey of the department, made recommendations. We have, from the chief all the way down to the Recruit Academy, we have layers of training that go on over the next 5 years. And that was also MyOp funding that we leveraged. And then our Fire Core Equity team works closely with the Office of Diversity and Equity. So our return on investment, as far as certification advancement with our high school programs, our Youth Academy, we've had over 384 CPR certifications with all the youth that we've brought through our programs. With the high school programs added, that number is going to increase probably by double because we have more students that we're working with. We have a very diverse applicant pool, and we were able to leverage $3.6 million in grant funding. So we have the wheels of the hiring pipeline machine moving, and we continue to seek creative ways that we can lift our community through job readiness, workforce development, and high-quality customer service. So, Measure U, we're not just simply funding programs. It's strengthening Sacramento's long-term public safety workforce by investing directly in the community. So as far as sustaining progress, we know the fiscal environment is strained, and sustainability and stability are critical to DORA initiatives. And the Measure U Community Advisory Commission makes these initiatives possible. I have a little, just a visual here for you to look at that shows the 752 participants we've had since July 21 when the program started. These are youth or active people that have benefited from the funding that you've provided. They're programs that are have a time period. The Youth Academy goes for 9 months. EMS trainees, anywhere from, the average is 1.6, 1.5 years in the program. Some take a little longer. We had one kid just blow through it in 1.2, 1 year, 2 months. He's in the Recruit Academy right now. What I want to show is the diversity that we're starting to see. 50% female in our programs, that's like huge. That gives me chills when I look at that number. It has been hard to achieve, but we are starting to see that happening, and so it really makes a difference. I'll leave you with this, with David Bing. He's a former basketball player and a former Detroit mayor. He said, diversity is about counting people. Inclusion is about making people count. This is why continued Measure U funding is critical in lifting our community. We make these young people feel like they count. That's it.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Members of the committee, if you would like to speak, please queue up. Member Cook or Miller?
Thank you very much. I work with youth. I love to see all the youth programming. It's fantastic, and the fact that you've got 50% girls, I love it. And kudos as well for leveraging all the additional grant funding. It's really impressive. I'm new to the commission, and I'm going to keep using that excuse as long as I can get away with it. But I just want to ask kind of a basic question about how you predict staffing and overtime versus FTEs. Why is building in overtime a better strategy than just increasing the amount of FTE? Is it the cost of increased benefits, or maybe you can just explain that to me?
Because there's a lot of, the Youth Academy runs on the weekend. There's a lot of times when one of the programs coordinators has to spend some extra time with a student that might be struggling and needing some help. We bring in staff, adjunct instructing, to help support, like 35 kids in a youth academy and one captain and one firefighter aren't enough. So we bring in staff that come in and help support that on the weekend, and so that costs overtime as well. That was built into the budget for that. So, and we take them places, we take them on a 3-day camping trip. A lot of those different things require the overtime. Girls Camp was all funded by overtime. It was a Saturday, Sunday, and it's supported by women within our fire department and men that are supportive of the program, as well as women from other departments that each department gives on their own. We don't pay the other women, but we do pay our own personnel when they show up to support the program.
You said Girls Camp is the one that has been discontinued?
Yes, Girls Camp was discontinued. We had to pick and choose, and it was hard. It was hard choices, heartbreaking choices.
Thank you.
But that was a good question on, a lot of people don't realize how much time we put in into the programs. And we have breakdowns on hours per program. I know somebody wanted to know the per participant cost, and that was something we were working on, and I realized that the data was not correct when we had finished the chart, and I'm like, well, I can't present that. It's not accurate, but we will get you the accurate information, and you will be able to see cost per program.
Member McGee?
Firstly, I love your former Mayor Bing quote, because I'm Detroit. That's my city, one of my cities at least. I really love the pipeline that you discussed in terms of reaching out to the, high schools. I see you have Intercom, which is in D1, so thank you for that. But have you looked at the collaboratively engaging with some of the other high diverse schools such as Sac High, Burbank, as well as reaching out to some of the community programs that are existing in Sacramento that are servicing diverse populations to kind of increase that number and at least get the word out there that the programming is available?
Those are the schools that we recruit for the Youth Academy. The Intercom High School and Valley High School are fire career technical education programs.
Got it.
So Valley has a fire and emergency services pathway. Intercom has a public safety pathway. We're partnered with Sac PD.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Some of
That,
the
I
kids
wasn't
are
aware
law.
of that.
But yeah, we try to hit those schools that you're telling us about. We're starting our recruitment season pretty soon, and we'll start hitting all those schools.
And what about other collaborative entities within the city? Do you have any existing partnerships? Are you looking at partnerships?
Yeah, actually,
Beyond the school track?
EMS Corps has really broadened our partnerships. The wraparound services are provided in EMS Corps, and the provider is Greater Sacramento Urban League, and that has really opened the door to more community-based organizations as well as Youth Forward. And so as we learn more about those community-based organizations, we're able to start sending them information when we're getting ready to take young people into our programs and direct them to, if they're interested, you can go to Valley High or you can go to Intercom if you have a desire for a public safety pathway.
Thank you for your answer, and those are great programs as well.
Yeah,
So thank you.
Thank you.
Member Fry Lucas?
Let me try this one now. Oh. Do you do any recruiting in the community colleges?
Yes, so that was one of the programs that we had to back off on because the one supervisor left was stretched too thin. We even had to have our youth academy firefighter do halftime helping out with the EMS Corps with the EMS trainees because we no longer had a supervisor. So we did. We went to American River College, City College, Sierra College, Cosumnes College, Folsom College. We went to them all. And we even went to Sac State for, as much local recruitment as possible. That was our goal. We want to bring those, the dollars that get invested back into the community.
If you're not going to community colleges, can you tell me where you're getting your 26-year-olds from?
The 26-year-olds? Mm-hmm. They, sometimes I don't know how they find us, but they find us. Just like we get random kids from, that apply for Youth Academy that live in Stockton. It's like, I don't know how they found us. We don't go down to Stockton to recruit, right? Yeah. But as far as 26-year-olds, the community-based organizations has helped us in the EMS Corps. A lot of them are foster youth, aging out foster youth. And they've been a big contributor to the student body of the EMS Corps. That's a program that's a 5-month-long program. So we do 2 a year. And so that's where we're getting those individuals. EMS trainees can be anywhere from 18 to, we've had a 40-year-old in the program. And so that's an open job application for somebody who wants to make $18 an hour and work 20 hours a week and go to school full-time and have it paid for. Right. So we pay for everything, all of their academics. They don't have to buy a backpack, they don't have to buy a water bottle. We pay for everything because we can't pay them a lot, and they get paid part-time with no benefits. Right. But yeah, we get a wide variety of applicants. We use our Instagram platform, joinsacfire.org, and then Wendy, our PIO, our media specialist, she will link stuff to the SacFire Instagram, and we get a lot of questions there, plus interest forms on the website.
So do you ever ask folks how they found you and kind of keep a tally of that to see what's working and what's not working?
Yeah, we do with our internal programs, yes. we'd love to do that with the career hiring process, but we don't always have full control over that in the NeoGov. I would like to see it, like, once they get hired and they're in the academy, I'd love to see that. But I would really like to see the entire applicant pool, and that's where we don't necessarily have full control over that piece of
I
it.
guess my question is there a question on the first application that says, how did you find out about us?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
That would- I
I'm
would
thinking that
love
maybe
HR to
you
add
might
that.
want to consider that. How did you find us? So that you're better able to figure out what's working. That's just a suggestion.
I think all departments would benefit from that.
Member Johnston?
Good evening. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I have a couple just fundamental questions to make sure that I'm understanding kind of the basics of what you presented. From what I'm understanding, is it correct to say that you get, minus the grants, entirely funded through Measure U?
So I know it gets confusing. So the grants funded 3 firefighter positions, they're program coordinators, and the operational costs for the students to be able to do what we want to do with them within the grants. So, and those 3 firefighter positions only last as long as the grant lasts, and then they go back to the field if we're not able to get continual funding. The reason I said Measure U, Measure U is a big part of that. It's because of our division that there was capacity for me and some of my staff to sit down and work on writing the grant and having that ability to look for ways to expand the program. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's what my understanding of the grants, and that's why I'm sorry if my question
Yeah.
wasn't clear, is if we ignore the grants, because I understand the grants exist partially because of the positions that are already there for Measure U funding. But if you were to remove Measure U funding, would there be any other revenue source from general fund or any other to, okay, so.
For solely Measure U, and yeah, if Measure U funding went away, it'd be very difficult to run the grant programs.
Okay, that's what I thought and assumed, and that's really helpful to know. So basically, no Measure U, no division.
Yeah.
Okay.
Our internal staff don't get offset for any of the costs. We leverage that as justification for the grant, that we had staff that could support all the reporting and a lot of things that happen within grant requirements.
Got it. And then I also want to ask about 5% women is a very low number, so I'm trying to understand in the pipeline. The girls' camp, there were 25 female cadets in the youth academy. 12 of those came from girls' camp, girls' fire camp. How many of those became eventual full-time employees?
They're not. This is our current academy. So this was the result of the last 2 girls' camps. We were able to do 2 in 2025 because we were watching our budget and we saw that we were able to do a second girls' camp and be able to move it to a time more in alignment with our youth academy hiring. So that was just fiscal year 25 that we grabbed these girls for the 2026 youth academy.
Got it. I guess my question is, because this has been discontinued from staffing reductions, right? That 5%, I would imagine, is not going to increase because of this, right, down the line? Or are those uncorrelated programs?
There is an increase in women in our pipelines. So the wheels have started to turn. I've provided one-page data sheets of 2 years, fiscal year 25 and fiscal year 26 of the Youth Academy, Girls Camp, EMS Corps, and EMS trainees. EMS trainees, it's more of a snapshot in time because it's very fluid. They're coming in and coming out. We just started a 5-person academy today. So that's how fluid we are with that. So we are seeing more women in those numbers of people that are coming through. The 11 that have promoted, half of them have been women. And so that helped affect the numbers of recent hires.
Yeah. Yeah, because this seems, at least to me, to be exactly what measure you're supposed to be doing. And so it seems disheartening to see this program then stop. And I know it's kind of hard to restart programs. There's time to kind of ramp up. Would this be, if you had, 10, 20% more in your budget, would this be one of the first things that you would look to increase? And how much would that cost? Or are there other priorities that you foresee in your department?
The 2 FTEs and the programs that we defunded totaled just over $900,000. So, the FTEs, of course, includes benefits and all of that, and we're expensive. It's expensive to add that, and then the remaining covered the programs. If we received, even a portion of that, we would be able to look at which programs do we want to start up. And Girls Camp is kind of a one and done, a weekend, and it's very enthusiastically supported by a lot of the individuals on the fire department.
Got it. Thank you so much for your time.
Of course.
Member Sala?
Yes. Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Very nice presentation.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Simple and clear. I appreciate that very much. I have a couple questions because I'm not sure I understand. So the pipeline programs that you have before us, the Youth Academy, that's intended to go into become a firefighter? Is that what that's for?
So the high school programs are viewed as introductory, like, hey, check this out. Maybe you never thought about doing this. Is this something you're interested in? So the Youth Academy is a high school program, and the students can reapply each year, and we build in leadership within that, so they become, they move into leadership roles within the program. And those are typically the ones that are a lot more interested in suddenly becoming a firefighter. We're seeing more and more of, early on it was just like kids like, that sounds fun on a Saturday, let's do that. Whereas now, because we're able to have our actual, we were out there promoting it at first, and now we have our youth out there recruiting with us, and it makes a big difference. And so we're seeing more and more young people that come through these academies wanting to be a firefighter or a paramedic. And so, I think that answered your question.
So the
right?
7 that was hired by the fire department, is that fire?
They were hired as EMS trainees.
Oh,
So they're going through, we're paying for them to go to school to get their EMT and then their paramedic license. And then they will get, as EMS trainees, if you're successful in all your getting your paramedic license, you move into one of our career pathways. You go straight there. You go to the front of the class, basically.
So the 7 are going to go into an EMS
They're,
training?
yeah, they're in the EMS trainee program right now.
Oh, okay.
Well, except for one. We have one that graduated out, and he's a
But
paramedic.
what's the difference between this, then what's the 5 in the EMS core?
The EMS Corps is the 5-month-long program where they get their EMT certification. I didn't get too granular with that because I wanted to move through everything,
Yes,
but
right.
it's really good questions. It's a 4-day-a-week, full-time, 8-hour days. Monday, Wednesdays, they get EMT training, and they have mentors that work with them. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, they have wraparound supportive services. They do things, they work on resumes, they work on practicing interview skills, they work on, they have community circles, they get mental health aid if they need that. Some of them need childcare. We have, we
Yeah.
have different things we can find for them to get those services.
Okay, so
So they come out with an EMT license.
these individuals potentially can end up, if they're successful and they do what's needed in their position, they can
Yes.
end up being hired
Yes.
as
So
fire.
we just hired one EMS Corps graduate from the first cohort in this current EMS trainee academy that started today.
And then, so I know that you, of the 160 cadets, I'm just talking about the Youth Academy right now. And you said 82% were BPOC,
Yeah.
and then 47 were female. So I'm figuring out that of the 47, there was a percentage that were BPOC.
Yeah,
Or
the,
female.
the,
But then I don't know, like, of those that were hired, what were women and what were BPOC? Of the 7
for
and
the
5.
hiring,
Yes, that got into the
right.
programs.
I would have to, I don't think it's on the, I gave you some info sheets, but I don't think that particular data set is on there, but I can give you that. I can get you that.
Okay,
The-
and
the-
that would be the same for the internships in the high school. And the reason why I want to know, because if there are pipeline programs and you're training them and then you're hiring them, I just want to see what's the outcome of that training resulting in female and BPOC being hired.
Yeah, I can absolutely get you that.
Because from what you just described, it is a feeder group into becoming a firefighter,
Yes.
correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I have all that data. I
Okay.
just, I didn't segregate it out into the,
Right.
yeah.
But thank you.
Member Cook?
Okay, thanks for putting this together. I like that you printed it out. The pipeline metrics are quite impressive, and what I'm trying to understand is, I mean, maybe off the top, are these workforce metrics, workforce outcomes for this calendar year, or is that the hiring, like, over the entire funding of the program? How should we think about that?
So that last page is, that was kind of showing all of the overall diversity of all the young people that have been part of our programs. That very last page there. Now, if you look into any of the individual infographics for the students, what you're seeing are fiscal year '25 and then fiscal year '26, if I had the data for 2 years.
So the 11 EMS trained, 10 EMS trainees, paramedic school, et cetera, that's just for this calendar year? Is that the right?
Yeah,
way
that
to
was
think
just
of it?
some high level, like here's some, that's not every single metric. It was just showing some of the accomplishments within that, within our programs.
Now, this presentation had a lot of like nuggets of wisdom. Kudos to using the Measure U funding as leverage to generate additional funding. What I'm like trying to reconcile, and I don't know, tell me if I'm wrong, is like your budget snapshot. You're receiving like materially less this year than the prior year. It's almost like 30% less from fiscal year '25, and I don't understand how like the revenue collected by the Measure U fund goes up every single year, so more money comes in every single year, but like for programs which Measure U is supposed to support, it goes down every single year. So why is the budget lower this year than last year? Was it like mandatory reductions? Do you get the
No,
problem
it
statement?
was, the budget office said this is what you're cutting. And so we had to make hard choices. And that was just one area of the overall fire department budget that I can't speak to on the overall budget. But that was just one kernel of it. Like in my eyes, I'm like $900,000. But every little $100,000 adds up to meet the budget, level that you're being asked to meet. We're being asked for reductions again this year, and programs are one of the areas. This is why I'm talking to you early instead of later. Your support is, I think, important. Your feeling of value, if you feel that around these programs, is important. And I could say it, I hope that you let people know that you think it's important that we stay funded or get restored.
Yeah, maybe this is just an observation, no pressure to respond, but it just seems like Measure U in isolation is collecting $160 million this year, which is more than last year. The year after that will be even more. But then you see programs like this, which Measure U is supposed to fund, are getting cut. Like, the math does not compute to me. I don't know if it's a function of head count or labor costs or something else, like any like wisdom you can impart would be quite helpful, because if you look at just straight numbers, number goes up, head count should go up too, right?
I feel strongly the way you've articulated that, and I wish I could tell you why it was decided that a portion of the door budget was reduced. I don't know the answer to that. I just don't know. We asked, we presented, we said why, and the impact that it was going to be, and that we have to choose which programs. We're not going to stop doing EMS trainees. That's critical. And then we're not going to stop the Youth Academy, because the impact of that is incredible. We have stats on where they're all at right now too. And we have a lot of them are out there going to college and getting the things they need so they can apply for us in the future. And they know how to do that because they've been with us.
Member McGee?
Thank you. One more question. In the presentation, I believe it was this one, it said MENA, M-E-N-A. What does that designation stand for?
Middle Eastern and North Africa.
Thank you.
Member Saul, go ahead. Yeah.
I just want to make a comment, and I'm not sure I understand it correctly, but so Measure U, it is intended for specific programs that people voted for, but it's also general funds. So the way I saw it happen, and someone can speak to that, is the money, Measure U makes our recommendations, but it's general funds, and the city council takes that Measure U money and puts it in the big pot and tells all the departments, okay, for us not to lay off, this is what happened last year, for us not to lay off anybody, you're going to have to find a way to come up with X amount of reduction in your budget.
Yes.
Everybody across the board. It doesn't matter whether it was a Measure U program or not, because they put it all in one big pot. And that's kind of how I understood why it doesn't make sense to you, because it goes into one pot. It's not a separate pot that says this is Measure U funds, and it's going to be used to fund the programs that people voted for. So that's how I understand it, unless, yeah? Okay.
Okay, so I have quite a few questions I'd like to ask you.
Okay.
First off, thank you for your time coming in. I know you guys are busy, and I appreciate it, especially just to talk about like money things. But I'm trying to look at the Measure U built operational capacity. You have like 8 FTE fully staffed models, and it kind of lists 8 of them. And then I go back to the workforce pipeline and diversity impact, and I see 4 programs. Those 4 programs I'm just struggling to match. I see a few of them like EMS internship. I see that one. I see firefighter youth academy. That makes sense. And then is the limited CTE support at high schools, the high school CTE node?
So we had a minimal, like a $20,000 high school CTE budget to support, like we would send crews there to, to help with Firepalooza Day or, different things like that. We also are, we actively work with Health Professions High School. The remaining captain, has gone there once a week for at least 3.5, 4 years to help teach CPR and get some instruction on IVs and phlebotomy and things like that. So Health Professions is like our, like we've kind of hugged them as close as we can, and so that was the minimal high school CTE. And that's when I saw the Children's Fund. I saw an opportunity to get those 2 firefighter positions that was part of the year 3 phase-in.
Okay, so the external funding leveraged was primarily due to that. Is that correct? Okay, so then the 3.6 million went towards like high school-oriented activities, is that correct? Or was it sort of?
The
Distributed.
3.6 million youth, Measure U funds,
No, the ones that you found,
the
the grant
leverage
money.
funds.
Yeah.
So 150,000, right, Ash? That, the Measure L, the budget for that is 150,000, so that's 500,000, I mean, 1.5 million, 500,000 a year. That covers 2 firefighters plus all the stuff that we do with the schools.
Okay.
And then the other half, or a little bit more, was for the EMS Corps, and that's for the 18 to 26-year-old. That's the EDD funded program. It's a workforce development program that is like a pre-apprenticeship type program, and we get them the first step that most young people need if they want to pursue their paramedic is EMT. And so we make sure that we're hitting these young people and providing supports that would be least likely to get their EMT and start to move forward into a career in the fire service. And those are the young people that were in, they're young adults. So that was a separate funding line. So it's half adults, or half of the program goes towards an adult program. The other half goes to a whole lot of kids in the high school CTE programs.
Gotcha. So it goes like generally EMT to EMS to paramedic. Is that the sort of?
That can be, yeah. I mean, literally, a kid could go from girls' camp to youth academy. Some of them could be in a high school, a fire CTE program as well. They could be coming to both. We've had that. Intercom kids have joined our program. And then from there, they could go to EMS Corps. Or if the timing was right, they can apply for the EMS internship. We hire once a year. We do we create a list. It's good for a year, so we can pick young people in and bring them in as we see people getting ready to move out. So that's the 2 ways they could go. We used to have a fire reserve program. It's mentioned there. I didn't go into it too deeply, but that was very more like a volunteer fire service and very firefighter oriented. That was another program that we had to stop supporting.
Okay, so that one's also not happening.
That's right.
And so that one, girls' fire camp, is also not happening. Recruitment and outreach, kind of fits the high school CTE stuff, or is it?
We recruit for the programs, but we're not recruiting overall department-wide like we did, other than what we do, sending notifications out for all the people that have put interest in to our department on our website. We let them know when hiring's beginning, and the stuff we do on Instagram.
Okay, got it. And then the paramedic scholarships, I think you mentioned, were the like 15,000 per to go through the program, or something?
Yeah, Sac State's paramedic program costs $15,000.
Cost 15,000, but you give them 3.6, or what was the number? I forgot you. How much did you give them to go through it?
For the so for our EMTs that are firefighters already, or single role medics, we support the American River College tuition, which is $3,500. So it doesn't matter where they go get their paramedic. If they are successful and they show us, their license, then they will get reimbursed $3,500.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. And then I guess going back to the pipeline, because I think this is what I'm most interested in. I assume that we need to, let me actually back up one more. Do we feel like the fire department needs to hire more people? Is there a shortage of either paramedics or firefighters? And the answer is yes.
The answer, paramedics is like, so for every one paramedic, there are at least 10 to 12 EMTs. We hire from what's called a statewide eligibility list. It's where they have to do a written test and they have to do a physical agility test. They get on the list. We hire from that. And that hiring pool is only as good as the diversity, and the number of women are only as good as that list, right? So we're growing our own, and the growth is paramedics. If we are going to make sure, and paramedics are usually less diverse than EMTs, because it's a lot more money to get through paramedic school, and there's challenges to it. So we're making sure that youth within our community where we've recruited and we've fostered, through these programs are coming out with a paramedic license so that they can now be contributors to the community in a well-paid career profession that takes care of them and their family.
Sure, and so that answers the paramedic side. You're saying, yes, we need more paramedics, right? Do we need more firefighters as well, or do we feel we're okay on that front, or?
We don't have a problem recruiting firefighters.
Okay.
But we want the diversity to reflect the Sacramento community.
Sure, that makes perfect
Have,
sense.
more women apply. So that's
Yeah.
the other piece.
Absolutely. So it makes sense then why the pipeline is clearly, in my opinion, a focus towards the EMT paramedic route, right? It looks like almost all these things have to do with, let's do training for paramedic school.
Yes.
Okay. And then my question then following is, next year, are we going to be able to get that grant money again, that 3.6 million? Do you assume we will be able to?
So that 3.6 million is over. I didn't know how many graphs to put in there. The 1.5 is we just started the Children's Fund program this year in the high schools for this semester, or this school year, and that allows us 3 years. So that 1.5 million will be dispersed over a 3-year period. The remaining funds go through the end of 2027. Yeah, 2027, or pretty close. But we're working with Public Works Alliance. They're the overarching entity that created EMS Corps. They were able, through that EDD grant, they were able to get 11 sites throughout the state, we being one of them. And we just got more funding for a COYA grant, that's California Opportunity Youth Apprenticeship. And so that will braid in and allow us to inch that along for another cohort. So we'll be going kind of cohort by cohort, and they're looking for, they put in for a different EDD grant to try to stretch it even further. So they're constantly, they're very well connected, and they're constantly looking for additional funding for us. That's kind of their commitment to us, to try to keep it going.
Okay. And then maybe lastly, we'll see, but what does success look like of this program to you? It seems like it has two sort of goals. One is, of course, the diversity aspect, and one is the hiring aspect, right? And so if you had to rate success, or like what sort of numbers would you have put towards, we have achieved the hiring side of it, and we have achieved the diversity aspect of it, like your own opinion?
Oh, there's, so success looks like we have more women and young people from the Sacramento community that represents the community being hired through these programs. What that number is, I mean, I would love to see the number of women on our department continue to rise. We've gone from 4% to 5% in the young hiring pool. I would like to see us achieve 10%. When I first came on this department, about 5 to 10 years into my time, we had 10% women on the department. We lost those numbers when we became an advanced life support department, and we required paramedics. You need a certain percentage of paramedics to support an ALS program. And in general, at the time, more of the paramedic workforce did not represent the diversity that we were looking for within the department. But that's why we're growing our own paramedics from our own community to make sure that we can affect those changes.
And then, yeah, that sounds right. So I love that number, 10%. Let's go for it. And then the other one is paramedic side. How many hires do you feel like need to come through this pipeline in order for it to be successful?
Well, we've got 25 EMS trainees right now. I want to see all of them hired. I want to see us to continue have this basically rolling inventory of our young people in our community of becoming paramedics and getting hired into the program. And so, if I could start seeing 10 a year get promoted, I would love that. Like, you know, because that's a kind, we have 20 half-time positions. And so, you know, some, like right now, we have 11 in paramedic school. So it'd be really cool. They're in various stages of paramedic school, depending on what school they're going to, because we provide opportunity, you know, options for different paramedic schools. Sometimes we have them apply to all so that they can get in, like, which, you know, and then, you know, if they were lucky, they'd get to choose. But if they're not, it's like, all right, you're going to ARC. You got into Sac State. Sac State's a little more rigorous to get into. But we just have them apply to all the ones that we support. So I would love to see 10 paramedics promoted a year.
In paramedic school, I don't know the education process of that. How many years is that?
Well, if you came in with nothing, like we hired 18-year-olds, and actually 17-year-olds who couldn't even, they were graduated from high school, but they were 17 and they still needed a work permit. We have, let's see, some of them are going on 2.5 years now, and they just started paramedic school. So, you know, they have to get their EMT, but we don't throw them into EMT class yet because we want to make sure they know how to do college, right? And so we have them do some English and math and some basic stuff first. And then we put them in medical terminology because EMT and paramedic is like a whole nother language to some students. And that helps them become more successful. Anatomy and physiology, more successful. And those 2 classes are prerequisites for paramedic school anyway. So it just kind of helps prime them to be successful in their academic journey.
Do you feel like what is the biggest burden of getting more EMS to EMT to paramedics? Like, is it the schooling cost? Is it the duration of schooling that you need to do? Or is it and I guess one question would be how can we ease that burden, right? How can we reduce that friction?
Well, fortunately, so when we funded the programs, we funded them appropriately. We made sure we figured out the education costs, and we were still doing okay with all of the funding that we had in place. So as far as additional funding for EMS trainees, that pipeline funding source, code 12039, is solid. Right? So that one's good unless they start taking more funds away. So, you know, and then we don't try to put we want people out by, you know, 1.5 years because we meet them where they're at. Some of them, we've had to have kids repeat EMT class. They get one chance, you know, like if they mess it up once, they get a second chance. So, so sometimes, you know, things happen. It's not like, you know, it's the end of the world. It's like, all right, what are we going to do better this time? What do you need to support you, and that type of thing. So we can't really say, oh, we want to get them through this quicker. When we hire EMTs, when they're already EMTs, which we have some of that happening, they get through the program a lot quicker. We've even hired in this current class, 2 of them had, by the time after they applied with us and by the time they got hired by us, had been accepted into paramedic school. So, you know, they've leveraged funds and we'll be able to get them reimbursed and support them while they're in paramedic school. They'll get through the program a lot quicker. So, you know, it's just, like I said, meet them where they're at is the biggest, the most important step.
Okay. Sorry, last question I just wanted to reiterate was, how many paramedics were you trying for per year, you mentioned, if we could?
If we could in our program?
Yeah.
I would love to see 10 come through our program. I'd like to see more of our program kids, so to speak, that maybe didn't become an EMS trainee or go through EMS Corps, but went to college and then come back to us and get hired as paramedics. They all know that paramedic, you're far more likely to get hired if you have a paramedic license than if you have an EMT certificate. And we hire both, but we need a certain number of paramedics to sustain our ALS programs.
Okay, sounds good. Member Sala?
Those are some good questions. I love.
Yes, this will be really quick, and it just dawned on me. Of all of your hires, or the ones in your EMS and not paramedic, but those programs, and the ones you're hiring, do you know how many are bilingual?
I know from the high school programs how many are bilingual. Well, the question on the spreadsheet, on the data that they gave us, and we just got that data, so we don't have it all, asks what is the primary language at home. So we can assume from that that they are bilingual.
Okay, because that's important.
Yes, it is. I agree.
All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions on the committee? No? Okay. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate, oh, go ahead.
If you don't mind, I'll
Go
take
for it.
30 seconds. I want to highlight some things that Kim highlighted at a great level, but when I started with the department in 1995, we had one pipeline program really, and it was, actually there was two. We had the paramedic internship program, and we had the fire reserves. What you heard about today, and we don't have fire reserves right now, it's one of our dormant pipelines. But what you heard about today is an evolution for this fire department, and it really reaches back into our communities. We're hiring people from our communities, and those are the people that stay here in the city long-term. When I got hired, I took a test at the Memorial Auditorium with 3,000 people. So I don't want to leave you with the impact that it's easy to hire firefighters. 1995 was what I will say easy. When we get 200 people apply today for a firefighter position, that's not easy when we'll whittle that down to about 20 people with backgrounds and what it takes to get hired into the fire service. We've removed a lot of barriers in the Sacramento Fire Department for entry, and it's through these programs that we can remove those barriers. We can train people that have no job skills, because vocational education isn't exciting anymore. That's not where people are headed, but that's what it takes to come into the fire department. So every firefighter is an EMT or a paramedic, and it's because of these programs that they're EMTs and paramedics from our communities. Money is being spent very well back in our community. So, and I want to thank Chief Iannucci for the detailed explanation.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this agenda item?
Yes, we do have one speaker, Lambert.
Where is he? Oh, there he is.
Measure U. It's a topic that I feel like I'm very familiar with. Mayor Steinberg, I'm a little hoarse because we were on the road. Shout out to the millennials, I know they're listening. And they begged me to come here. Measure U, a lot of people aren't aware of this. They are, because I told them about it. I went to a lot of Measure U meetings with Mayor Steinberg. I didn't go with him, I just followed him. And when he presented it, I don't remember it talking about helping the fire department. We talking about the fire department. I don't remember him saying that. And I definitely do not remember it being presented to the public to combine it with the general fund. When you combined it, when they combined it with the general fund, you lost me on that, because they're saying now it's difficult to audit it. And by the way, I've considered myself an expert on interpreting graphs and surveys. And when I looked at those surveys tonight, I didn't really see a lot of diversity. You know, if you want your ears tickled tonight, you got the wrong person. I didn't really see that. And the women, the female that they were talking about, I didn't hear much about diversity. And as a matter of fact, I don't really think it's genuine to talk about diversity now. You have a president that's abolishing that, and it's called Project 25. And I think people should be genuine when they talk about this type of thing. You know, it's a lot of money coming to the coffers from Measure U.
Thank you for your comments, Chair. We have no more speakers.
Okay. Are there any final comments from the committee on this? No? Okay. To the next agenda item, which Pete, welcome in.
All right. Good evening, Chair, Commission members, and members of the public. I'm Pete Coletto, the city's finance director. So just like we've done in prior years, we're going to give the commission what we call our mid-year financial update and really set the stage for the budget discussions that are going to come. So we always live in 3 years in municipal finance, the prior year, the current year, and the budget year. So first we'll look at last year's year-end results. They were positive, very slightly positive on the operational side. So that's that $2.8 million. We also had, just like last year, we had a gain that has to do with our investment pool. So when interest rates went up post-COVID, we had to take a loss on our investment pool. When interest rates go up, value of a bond that you own goes down, we invest in bonds. But if you don't sell those bonds, the good thing is you get all your money back, and then you can reinvest it at the market rate. So we had to take some write-downs in prior years, but we did a good job managing our cash flow, and so we're able to pay ourselves back, and that's what that 12 million is. So we finished the year positive 14.8 million. However, we had a labor negotiations with the police officers union. It went to arbitration. There was an arbitrated award, and council, as part of accepting that, authorized moving prior year savings to pay for current year costs associated with that increase. So that was 7.1 million, so we're left with 7.7 million. Council took an action at mid-year to basically set that aside. We are in negotiations with almost every single labor union. Those negotiations may have a current year impact, and we might need that 7.7 million to balance the current year budget. If there is any left over, it would go to balance our budget gap for next year. So just a reminder, our approved budget is $1.7 billion this year. 872.5 is in the general measure U funds. We closed a $62 million gap this year without any layoffs. And then just a reminder of how we closed the gap. It was very balanced, roughly half ongoing strategies, revenue increases, expense reductions, and roughly half one-time. The issue with those one-time strategies is they begin your budget gap the next year. They're really one-time. So as far as our financial update, I'm not going to go through all the details. You're obviously much more concerned about the Measure U fund, but we did see some good revenues on some of our other major taxes. Sales tax, as you'll see in a minute, really has not been performing very well, and we'll talk about that. And unfortunately, our cannabis tax revenues have been coming in below budget as that industry really struggles. Again, I'm not going to go through all of these, but that just shows you how our taxes are looking this year. Property tax continues to grow. This is the one that I think you're all most interested in. This shows both our 1% Bradley Burns sales tax, which is a point of sale sales tax, and the 1% Measure U sales tax. And really what you'll see there is we had what I call a sugar high when inflation hit a few years ago. Price levels went up, people were still spending, you saw your receipts go way up, right? But then people tightened their belts. Their wages didn't rise as fast as inflation. They slowed down their spending, and we have experienced what you are seeing right there, which is sales tax flatlining, both Bradley Burns and Measure U. And I will say this is the case up and down the state of California. So this is not a unique dynamic to Sacramento. This is more of kind of what you see in a post big burst of inflation type of world. We have seen the last month or two of sales tax receipts starting to look a little bit better. So we will have another update of our revenues before council approves the budget. So we're keeping a really close eye on that. I'll just say I feel a little bit like Charlie Brown in the football on sales tax. So every year we had been increasing it in the budget, and then every year at mid-year we've been knocking it right back down. So, we'll see, but we're very cautiously optimistic, emphasis on very. And these are some of the other taxes, UUT. Okay, so our 5-year forecast, what are we looking at as we head into the fiscal year 27 budget? Like we always do, we don't know when a recession might occur. So we forecast basically the sort of economy that we're seeing right now. So continued growth. One thing that we're doing that's a little bit different this year is, I mentioned earlier, we are in labor negotiations. We have a number of offers that are on the table. Obviously, the unions have not agreed to them because we're still in negotiations, but we've incorporated the costs of the city proposals that are out there right now because, I think it's reasonable to assume that that is kind of the floor of where we'll end up. We're not going to end up lower than that. So we wanted to incorporate those costs into the forecast. Another thing that I think a lot of you have probably heard about is the state's HAP funding. This is their homelessness funding. There is a portion that goes to large cities. So the good news is the state has appropriated a 7th round of HAP. The bad news is, one, it's half the value of the 6th round of HAP. And 2, traditionally what's happened is we receive the funds a year after the state appropriates them. And so the state has round 7 appropriated in fiscal year 27. And so we're not sure yet whether we will be able to receive it in fiscal year 27 or if we have to wait until fiscal year 28. And the state has said they are going to put a lot more requirements on the funding, but have not told us what those are. So we don't know if those could offset some of our existing sheltering programs. So we've held that aside for right now. We are in communication with the state, and as we learn more, we're going to update council and the public, and hopefully we'll have some good news later in the budget process of additional state funding. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, we're reserving that $7.7 million of prior year savings to potentially cover current year labor negotiation costs. So, we give a forecast with the approved budget back in June. We wanted to show how that forecast has changed and where we are now. So that the June forecast is that top line. We've made some revenue and expense updates based on our forecast, what we're seeing, our projections. Those are positive, which is a good thing. Our revenues are looking better. We then added the current city labor proposals that are on the table with the unions. And you can see where we are. So we're very slightly balanced for this year. And then we're looking at a $66.2 million deficit to close for fiscal year 27. And, we've talked about the structural budget deficit here where we just have that fundamental imbalance, our expenses rising faster than our revenues. You still see that dynamic. But what I always tell people is we're not going to enter fiscal year 30 with a $102 million budget gap because between now and then, council is going to take actions and adopt permanent and ongoing strategies which will help the out years of our forecast. This just is a graphical visual representation of our forecast and our forecasted budget deficits. I'm not going to get super in the weeds here, but we're taking a really similar approach to the past 2 years when closing the gap. We've given instructions to all the departments to give us reduction plans of up to 15% of your net general measure U fund use. And this is really to give us more options than the size of our problem. And it will allow city leaders and council to choose things versus just giving everyone a 11% across the board cut target. We want to try to use more of a scalpel than a chainsaw. And at the same time, we're looking at some what I call citywide strategies. So some of these are one-time things like projects we finished or we haven't started. Some of them are, we did a debt refunding to get a better interest rate. We're looking at things like that as well. And really what we're looking to do is define our core services. Council had a strategic visioning session late last year and identified economic development, homelessness, and public safety as their top 3 priorities. So we're looking to advance them, and really minimize service impacts on the public and impacts on employees. We're in the people business. Most of our budget is staffing. It's our staff who delivers our services. So the upcoming budget development schedule, and this is what I really want to highlight for the commission. We heard loud and clear from council that while they love to hear what all the departments are doing, they want a much more budget-focused departmental presentation. So what we're going to do, and we're going to start on March 3rd, is we're going to start off with some budget context. And this is really going to lay out our baseline plan on how we're looking to balance the budget, with the caveat that there are still a lot of unknowns out there, that we're kind of putting it out there as a baseline for council to let us know what their thoughts are. But this is normally the information we would be presenting early May. So we're moving it way up because we want council and the public and stakeholders to really have time to evaluate the decisions, because they're tougher decisions this year. They are. You know, what I tell people is we published all the strategies we didn't use last year, and that really becomes the starting point for a lot of the departments and the strategies they developed for this year. So we really want to get that out early. The departments will present. We have departments coming each week for the first 4 weeks in March, and they'll be talking about the impacts of those budget balancing strategies. And again, this is to get the information out there as early as possible so that we can have that robust discussion. We're still going to release the proposed budget in April, like we always do. And then council's budget hearings in May can be more focused because they'll have already heard and been able to ask questions about a lot of the strategies. And we're still shooting for a June adoption. And just, I know I'll also just say for the Measure U Commission, I know one of the great frustrations has been we release our budget at the end of April. We present in May. You guys typically have a meeting kind of later in May, and you don't have that much time to react to the staff proposals. So we did hear, the commission's kind of overall guidance, I think that you guys talked about back in October. So, we do have that, we have heard that, but this is really to help you also look at some of the strategies that we're actually thinking about and be able to deliberate and provide the advice to council. This is just a more detailed schedule. So again, we're kicking off those departmental presentations March 3rd. I'll start that off with that kind of overall context and, overall balancing plan. And then again, our pending factors. So, we're really focused right now on balancing the budget year, but we still have these unfunded liabilities that are out there that are longer term, weighing on our finances, unfunded pension, capital deferred maintenance. We don't know what's going to happen after round 7 of the HAP program from the state. Are they going to start giving ongoing funding sources to support homeless services? And then, again, we're always worried about the risk of a recession. All our problems will just become, an order of magnitude worse if the economy has a downturn. And that is all I have, so I'm happy to take any questions.
Members, if you guys have questions. Member McGee.
Good to see you again, remembering the last
Twice,
time.
yeah.
So I know when you came in last time, you were really kind of pushing that you were going to be making those advance requests of the different departments. How do you find, and I think you kind of spoke about, I kind of want to know, like, how did that work for you? Do you feel like, did they get ahead of it? Did you really have that compliance that was needed this time around based on implementing that to really get kind of ahead of the game, per se?
Yeah, I think it was helpful to get the kind of overall thoughts from the commission. And, there's some that obviously I always never want to get involved in as finance, I don't want to get in the, we should do this, or we should do that, or we should do this, or we should do that. Those are kind of those policy decisions. I do definitely agree with the evaluation recommendations that the commission has had, right? And that's something that we continue to work on. I think it is helpful to get the general sense, and I think it will be helpful when you see what some of the strategies are to get some of the more specific opinions from the commission.
And then, as a follow-up, since you said that, what can we anticipate in terms of seeing the strategy and kind of the?
Oh yeah, you're gonna see everything March 3rd. So you're gonna see all of the strategies that the city chose and all the strategies the city did not choose. So you'll see the whole list. It'll be published, and then you'll start as you go through the week. So the first set of presentations will be finance, youth parks, community enrichment, and Department of Community Response. So you'll get to hear from the department heads at those meetings. Here's what those reductions actually mean for the public, because I think it can get hard when you just see a list of 100 different strategies, but this is what it means for pools or community center or homeless services or police staffing or fire response times. They're going to be more focused on, if I'm a member of the public, this is what it means for me. But March 3rd is the short answer. You'll see everything.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you.
Member Cook?
Hey, Pete, I feel like this is deja vu, so I'll just say it again. I appreciate the budgetary presentation that you put forth, but it's this recurring challenge where the general fund is combined with the Measure U fund, so we're not able to ascertain the actual performance or budgetary considerations of the Measure U fund. And I think that is actually doing a disservice to this commission because we're not able to see the flow of funds, what's getting funded, what's not getting funded. The fire department had $700,000 cut from their budget, didn't know about it. Maybe it's because the general fund and the Measure U funds are combined, and that level of abstraction is preventing us from seeing how the funds from Measure U are actually spent. Is there a deck, a table, or something that shows just the Measure U 5-year forecast that you can share? Does that exist?
So, I'll say a couple things. So, one is I hear you because I present the full budget, and the decisions when the city manager and council is making a decision on, for example, the reductions in the DOOR program that Kim was talking about. They're not sitting there saying, should I make this because it's the Measure U fund and it's that much, or the general fund and it's this much? They're saying, okay, well, do I want to make this reduction to the DOOR program, or or do I want to close pools, or do I want to, stop police services? I just want to put that out there because that's the way they look at it. As far as the Measure U funding, I think Ash does report to all of you on what the allocations are. If you want to see the actual spending, it is broken out in the ACFR. I'll say they're not combined in that, we have accounting-wise, we have a general fund, and then we have a separate Measure U fund. The Measure U fund, however, is a general purpose fund and can be used for any legitimate governmental purpose. The Measure U fund brings in around $135 million a year, and budget-wise, it's roughly 150-ish. Don't quote me on that because I don't have it in front of me. Expenses per year, right? But I definitely hear your frustration, and I don't think it's wrong necessarily. We're going to look at it different ways. But what I would say is look at the you do have that list from Ash of what you are funding, and that's kind of the Measure U fund. That's the breakout.
Yeah, that makes sense. I understand the point on it being combined with the general fund. I just think from the perspective of the public, it makes this commission transparently largely ineffective at ascertaining the flow of funds, given that nothing's being presented in isolation and we have to go through the ASH appendix sheet to get the data, et cetera. So I suppose we can do that. I don't know, maybe a question to this commission, don't have to answer this tonight. Is there any mechanism that we have, even if it's a recommendation, to compel the Measure U funds to be decoupled, even from a reporting perspective, so we could actually have more insight into how it's being spent? Because the fire department presentation tonight was kind of a shame with the budgetary cuts. Shouldn't have happened. So that's point one. And then point two, like, looking at the general fund as a whole, it says $66 million deficit in one of the charts. But you look at the details of that, like 36 million of that is from homelessness and homeless adjacent spending.
I would say 48 million is. So our homelessness services, it was stood up largely with state funding.
Yeah.
And as that state funding has declined, and in the fiscal year 27 projection, there is no state funding.
Yeah.
Because we didn't include HAP. So that's 48 million of general fund supporting homelessness.
I guess the question is, maybe it's provocative, you can say, answer it however you want, is that if the majority of the deficit is coming from one program, which is homelessness, but the response to that is a 15% across the board cut across all programs, to me it seems that it would make the most sense to look at the program that is driving the largest fiscal deficit, perhaps addressing that first. I'm not sure if that's a popular opinion within City Council. Has that been addressed? What opinion do you have on that, if any?
Yeah, so I would just want to make a small clarification. So we're not cutting everyone 15%, right? Departments are coming forward with 15% reduction plans so that we have a menu of options to choose from. I will say too, we are looking at Department of Community Response is largely running the sheltering program. They are looking at various efficiencies, which we will talk about more on March 3rd, which is their presentation day. Again, as a finance guy, I just need the numbers to balance. So the policymakers get to tell me where do they want to spend their money. Our council did identify homelessness as one of their top priorities, and so I don't. Again, I'm not the one who makes that call, and I'm very happy to not have to be the one who makes that call. But I don't see them saying we're going to close down all our shelters, a few months after they say it's their top priority.
Member Sala?
Yeah, so March 3rd, we're going to see all the strategies for all the departments, and then subsequently, each department's going to present what that means.
Correct.
And then we can look at that and then make our priorities or our recommendations based on these strategies. And I think that's great, because that, I think, will give us more leverage. And I want to say that last year, how I saw Measure U be able to save the day. I forgot which program they were going to cut. Maybe it was a couple of programs that were on the chopping block. That one was the crime and prevention under the diversity office. Or no, they were going to cut a FTE from the equity and diversity office. And then there was the Mosaic. They were going to cut the hours for that. And then the free rights. And the community came out and spoke against it. And then I think Measure U, or the committee, the commission and the council said, we recommended moving Measure U funds to cover that gap. The Measure U, and that, so that the shortfall that was resulting in a cut of these programs, Measure U was going to be utilized for that. So, I mean, it's still shifting things around, but we can still make a recommendation based on if the department is saying, well, we're going to cut the Mosaic program again. We're going to cut the hours, reduce the hours, because I think that's what was being recommended. We can make that recommendation that it not be cut and that Measure U funds be utilized to cover that shortfall. Correct?
I mean, the commission can advise council, and so to the extent that there are, reductions that the commission doesn't like, it's well within the commission's rights to advise council and
Like
or recommend.
We could do with the fire department and state we want the 900,000 because it's so critical to the pipeline program. And if we're gonna, if we stop now and we don't do it again this year, the girls' camp, we're really gonna be behind, and it'll be hard for us to catch up as a city, to increase the pipeline and the diversity, which we're on it's slow, but it's moving in the right direction. We can make that recommendation and say, don't cut the program use Measure U funds, this amount of money for the fire department. We can make that recommendation, and then I think we can advocate for our city council members and say, we're making this recommendation because of this, and we would like your support, and hopefully we get that support. I see that's the way to have influence, and that we feel comfortable that Measure U is going to go in some of the areas that we think it should go in, and appropriately utilizing Measure U funds for these different programs. So.
Member Johnston.
Yeah, I'm going to echo with Commissioner Cook, and I know you're not the policy or the numbers guy, but I've been trying to figure out how to do that calculation as well, because it is so commingled. It's almost, I don't want to say impossible, because I'm going to keep going back to the best way that I think of it is the ocean, right? Like Measure U is the Indian Ocean. Saying that this water is Indian Ocean water is a little silly because it flows throughout the ocean, right? And if the Indian Ocean rises, it's going to probably spread throughout. And that's what we're kind of trying to figure out, is that's what's happening, right? Is the Measure U fund just helping the general fund, or is it helping Measure U programs? And the only way I can think of doing that is possibly comparing the increases in Measure U and then looking at if there's comparable increases in Measure U programs throughout. But the problem is there's probably so many revenue streams coming in general fund, and those vary widely as well to segregate one impact into the fund and then aggregate that out to saying how to, you're the math numbers is there any way for us to
what I would say is what's coming into your fund, right, is the sales tax revenue. That's about $135 million, and it's been flatlined over the last 4 years. What is going out of the Measure U fund is what council allocates and what you see in the reporting that Ash gives you, and that's well over 150 million. So it's that balance is made up with the general fund.
But that's, I don't want to say the word arbitrary, because that has, I think, a certain connotation to it. But someone's deciding to draw the line, saying that this is within and this is without Measure U. But there's no mathematical requirement that is Measure U or Measure not, right?
So I think what has happened in the past, and there's history that obviously predates me. This is my third kind of budget cycle with the city, and I think that council and prior city managers have said, here are in listening to the advice and recommendation from the prior Measure U commissions, have said, here are the programs that we want Measure U to fund. And then, we put those programs and those expenses associated with those programs in the Measure U fund. That those amounts have grown more than the Measure U tax revenues have grown. And so now you have the general fund covering that difference. But if you're looking for the universe of, what is Measure U funding, it's those programs that you see in the reports that you all get from Ash.
Yeah. My concern is I'm sorry to keep using metaphors, but it's like a blanket, right? Our neck could be covered more, so we pull it up, and now our toes are covered instead of the blanket getting bigger, right? So it's a little bit of a whack-a-mole, where you're saying the council can point to this and say, we're going to now increase the quote-unquote Measure U funds that are going to this, so therefore Measure U is now more allocated than what it's bringing in. But that's on paper, right? That's at the end of the day, it's what the city council is saying, that this is funded by Measure U. But at the end of the day, it's the general fund, right? And they're just saying it's
all your general fund, all your general purpose revenues have to balance with all your general purpose expenses have to be paid with general purpose revenues.
Yes.
when you're looking at it at the high level, which is what I have to do to balance a budget, that is what you need to do. But again, it's been prior decisions on what programs do we want funded by Measure U, and then these programs have grown faster than the resources. And what council hasn't wanted to do is just say, oh, okay, well, this was funded by the DOOR program was funded by Measure U. Well, oh no, now the Measure U's in deficit, so we're just going to completely axe the DOOR program. What they want to do is say, okay, well, I have this overall problem. What's the least painful way to address it? And some of it might be, getting rid of vacant positions. Some of it might be, my department, I'm not spending out, I don't know, my office supplies. Let's cut that before I cut something else. And, that's why we're in a situation where you have these Measure U expenses and, not revenues, but we're still balanced overall.
All right, thank you.
I think if I can just chime in on this, to me, I think it's valuable to look at it as a minimum threshold of purposeful spent money. So yes, we make $135 million for Measure U. That is the minimum amount that we should spend on Measure U activities that are assigned to what that should be intended for. Now, that means, all the things that people agreed to when we signed that, when we basically voted for that ballot measure, right? And so we have this minimum threshold, which almost inadvertently, you will spend more than that on those things. Because if you have a minimum, it's very easy to say, okay, well, let's just give them 100,000 more, or let's just give them $1 million more, and so it becomes more. I think it's fine that the general fund can cover more than the Measure U makes in terms of Measure U aligned programs, but at least it must be the minimum. It must have a minimum of what the Measure U makes, right? So we can never go below that. And so if we have programs that are not aligned with Measure U and the spending in the Measure U bucket, and we are now spending $100 million on things that are Measure U aligned and $35 million on non-Measure U aligned things, that's a very big problem, right? But if we're spending more, I think that's not so big a deal. Does that make sense? Or do you agree with that?
Oh, that makes sense. I'm just not convinced that that's what's happening yet. In terms of the one-to-one dollars, when we talk about what is within the Measure U, the spirit of Measure U, which is what all we're doing here, that at the end of the day is a policy decision. And whether Measure U funds increase or not, I don't think that is taken into consideration necessarily. I understand there are things that have been funded with Measure U prior, and those get more expensive, and we're saying that they're coming, the delta is coming from the other general fund funding, right? But at the end of the day, they look at this as a pie, and then they say afterwards, we're going to say that this is Measure U, this is Measure U. And some stuff has been historically in Measure U, so therefore it's attributed to Measure U, but I'm not confident necessarily that you can, they're commingled. It's I think, impossible to trace a dollar from sales tax to these programs, right? That's
Well, it is. I mean, it is set up in a separate fund, so you can, and it is audited every year. But again, the Measure U is a general purpose tax, and the city council can spend it for any legitimate governmental purpose. But the expenses and the revenues for Measure U are accounted for separately. They're broken out in the ACFR. They're audited. We bring a Measure U audit every year to council. So it is separate, but I think if I'm hearing the frustration from the two commissioners, it's arbitrary what's put in there. It's a decision of the policymakers of which fund to assign it to, and they've made those decisions with these programs.
Yeah, and I don't mean arbitrary and frivolous. I mean arbitrary in that there's no legal guidelines of what's going in, because it is general fund.
There cannot be legal guidelines because it's a general purpose tax.
Exactly.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but we do need to take a vote to extend the meeting.
Sure. Let's go ahead and do that.
Sorry.
I'll first that we extend the meeting by 1 hour. Do we have a second?
I will second.
Okay, second by McGee. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone abstain? You abstain?
I abstain. I have to go on here.
Okay. Will we still have quorum? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Yeah.
7. Yeah, okay, so that's fine. Fair enough. Okay, so we can continue.
Yes, continue.
I have concluded. Thank you.
And sorry, I don't mean to come off as snippy or anything about it. It's just, I get where you guys are all I get where you all are coming from, and how it can be difficult to tease it out, but that is how, it is separate, but it is a decision of the policymakers what expenses go in that fund.
Yeah, and I don't want to beat a dead horse here. I ran a budget software company. I know how budgets work, and I know when you don't have legal guidelines or requirements, you can, say one thing's being put in there, but you might be taking more out of this, and it's really hard to trace that. So I understand from an accounting standpoint, the money's in there. We're saying that it's in there. It's a pot that's in there, but the decisions are made collectively for a general fund, so it's very impossible to say with accuracy or confidence that this is 100% going to this or that, because we can't pull that dollar out and say, oh, this program will now be funded by one less dollar automatically. But I don't want to take any more time. I thank you for your very thorough responses as always.
Sure, I'll just also add that it's on us to advocate, right? Because the law specifically states it is a general fund, and by that it means that the legislators can basically choose where it gets spent. It's on us to advocate for where it gets spent, right? And that's kind of our role. And if that means that we have to look at the general fund as well to make comparisons of actually we're not spending enough in fire or we're spending too much in fire, then we can do that, right? Because we can say based off of our evaluation of the entire fund, it seems like Measure U dollars shouldn't go towards that, right? It's totally fine. So I think we shouldn't limit ourselves to being okay, although we will only discuss Measure U dollars because that's our prerogative, in terms of our recommendations of what to do with it, we can use the entire general fund to evaluate what we should do with those what we should do with those Measure U dollars. So, and to me, I don't view this as too big of a concern, because either way, we still have to do the same thing, which is advocate for the programs that we care about. Member Cook?
I think that framing is what's caused the city of Sacramento to have a $60 million budget deficit next year and $110 million budget deficit by 2030. This philosophy that the tax collected by the Measure U fund represents the minimum possible spend. No, it's the totality of funds that have been collected from the taxpayers. It's the maximum possible amount. And this idea that we're going to spend more than we collect is the problem. So I'm not sure we're gonna agree on disagree or agree with that, but I think what we can agree on is that the Measure U fund today is being used to cover general fund expenses. We talked about this ad nauseum last year, $2.2 million used to replace roofs within city facilities, $58,000 for software expenditures, $500,000 for physical barriers with federal civil rights laws, all things the city needs to do, but it's being covered by the Measure U fund, and that is the problem we have when the general fund and the Measure U fund coexist together. So I think this debate about it being the minimum spend is a distraction. We can't actually track the flow of funds when the Measure U fund and general funds are combined, and it should not be. I don't know what it's gonna take. I don't know if we can do this or not do it, but combining it is objectively a bad idea.
I think in order to change it, you would have to propose a ballot to get it modified. Go ahead.
Or I agree with you. Or because this whole exercise, I think, is just to show that it's okay for this body to look at the general fund. And that, I think, is the ultimate conclusion, because in order to do our job, we have to do that. So I just want to say your point is valid.
Okay, I don't see any other hands up, so I do want to ask some questions about what you presented as well. In terms of the metrics and budget focus that you said that that City Council wanted to hear about, I'm curious as to, obviously we've done a bit of our metrics seeking as well. How do we collaborate on this better? And what are you guys doing internally? And yeah, how can we plug in?
Yeah, I don't know if Ash can answer better than I can. I'll defer to Ash.
And I'm sorry, this is just a question on the metrics,
Yes.
where we're at.
Sort of as we've seen now that the City Council wants more metrics and budget focused presentations, yes, it's great, we want to hear what you do, but we'd rather,
Yeah, so we're gonna have, this is gonna be an interesting experiment this year. This is, we're calling them early budget work sessions. This will probably be less metrics focused and more fiscally focused and impact focused. As far as the departments, they're only going to be getting 10-ish minutes to present, some maybe a little bit longer for some of the bigger departments. But, I know the city manager's office is working on, incorporating more metrics and dashboards. And I will tell you, our new city manager is very data-driven and data-focused. And so, she has been promoting that vision. So.
Yeah, and when you say impact focused, that to me is like this. That's a synonymous with metrics, right? Like, I assume it has to be some sort of objective.
You will. I mean, so for the example, I'm going to keep picking on Jackie because her at Parks because that's the easiest for me to conceptualize. But if you're saying, hey, we need to reduce this program, well, okay, well, how many people use it? How many kids use what? All of those things. So those are the impacts on the community.
And I'll just quickly add, so we're really starting with the city council priorities: economic development, public safety, and homelessness. There's really 6 core departments that really drive progress towards those priority areas. And so we're really looking at this first fiscal year from July 1st to the following June 30th of 2027 is the opportunity to pilot this new performance management framework that we're still developing. We're going to be developing it over the next several months. At the same time, all of the attention is going to be on the budget. So meaning how do we get this budget into balance? There may be some discussion around metrics, but we're really looking at after budget adoption as to when we really start building out this performance management framework, getting the departments into a habit and a cadence of updating their performance measures. And then in year 2, which would be fiscal year 2028, that's when we would try to start to scale this out citywide to the remaining departments. So it really is, we've talked about it before. It's like turning an aircraft carrier around. But like Pete said, this is a high priority for the new city manager, and we are actively developing that framework and hope to be able to provide as much data as we can. I will say the direction for departments in terms of their budget performance measures is to kind of hold the line. There may be some, meaning they're likely going to be the same metrics that you've seen in the past. We'll try to figure out a way to package those in a way that help you all in terms of your evaluation of city program performance. But I wouldn't expect any major changes until we start to get into the latter half of this year.
Okay. So I guess next steps, we obviously are still digging into our metrics, trying to figure out, what that looks like. If there is collaboration opportunities between these, it sounds like maybe one is a little bit higher tier in terms of like department level, and it's maybe not specific enough, but it'd be interesting to see what's going on internally and keep that partnership going. Cool. Another thought from this is that maybe we'll talk about this in number 8, but given that there's going to be these March 3rd presentations, and we are presenting our findings on the 24th, and we will not have a meeting, or we will have one meeting in between? We will. Okay, that's good. Yeah.
What month?
Next month, yeah, 16th. Okay, so we'll still be able to meet at least once more, but I guess we should plan on everyone then bringing their thoughts and opinions from what they saw on that March 3rd meeting to here, so we can sort of consolidate ideas. Okay, and then lastly, we've obviously sent you one document so far, but we would like to send another one. It's going to take maybe a little bit of time, but putting it together and sort of like going deeper into the ROIs of programs that we've been able to analyze so far. There's various thoughts that we all have. I think that's it for me. Does anyone else have any comments? I see no hands up. No? Okay. When will we see you next?
When do you guys want me back?
I believe that's May 18th.
May 18th. Okay.
That's after the budget is proposed. Budget is released.
Let me know if the commission wants to hear from budget again. We can come back. We can also give a condensed version of that overall presentation that we're giving to council on March 3rd. If you wanted to talk more about what staff's initial plan is.
Sure. I did actually think of one more thing I did want to ask. I saw in like the city survey, one of the questions was, are you in favor or not in favor of hiring more outside staff? Like basically
Contracting out.
Yeah, contracting out, exactly. Because obviously the costs are quite high internally. Not to mention we're seeing sort of like the arbitration sort of costs that are costing taxpayers. And so instead of it going to parks or pools, it's going to like arbitration agreements and higher wages and stuff. So is it possible? I don't think we can hire out police, but for example, maybe there are other groups that we could be contracting out. What's the current?
Yeah, so I don't want to get out in front of publishing strategies for council. I will say last year, some of the unused strategies involved contracting out. So, we'll present more on March 3rd, but I'm just wary of getting out in front of council.
Okay, fair enough. Member Sala, did you want to?
I just want to state that since you're going to start next week, next Tuesday, you're going to start your presentations. To the extent possible, we should be at City Council listening to the presentations, because that's going to inform our recommendations, and you're going to present in April, and we'll have, our next meeting will be soon after your presentation. And we should be able to, before that, have some recommendations to give to you to come to our April commission meeting. I would like that to be, because if we don't do it in April, we're going to be back to the whole situation of doing something in May, proposing something. So that's it.
Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this?
Yes, we do. We have Lambert.
I'm going to try some things that is coming from a business perspective. If most of you, and I mean this sincerely, if most of you, shout out to this guy right here, Mr. Cook, because you're going to need people thinking like that to challenge the system. A lot of people don't want to hear that, but I have a lot of admiration for him. He's on his way to integrity. It's hard to have integrity when you're surrounded. In terms of ideas to get this city, because I'm a native, there's a way to get this city in the black. First of all, we're going to have an audit done on who's working remotely at City Hall.
Oh.
If they're working remotely, they shouldn't get a raise. They don't get laid off. I bet you, is that part of the negotiation for labor? I didn't hear that. That will save a lot of money. Also, me personally, I don't believe the city manager's office should receive a raise. I believe that department is leading the way to disaster. I also personally believe that there are people at this city, and we've documented them, that are trying to lead this city into the red intentionally. We can prove it. Because if you graduate from a university in economics and fiscal management, something like a budget deficit makes no sense to me. That's a fancy terminology for mismanagement. I run a business, there's no way I would project 5 years in the red. My family would run me out of town for that.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker is Lee.
Good evening. This is my first time attending your commission meeting, and I just wanted to say that I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate the analysis that you're making, your frustrations of the Measure U funding and how it's being spent and not spent. I'm really curious myself. I want to dig up the how it originally appeared in the ballot, because my thought was that it was separate, and I'm learning here that it's not exactly separate. And as a citizen, that concerns me, and I hear that it concerns you. So I just wanted to give you some input and say thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for your critical analysis and for fighting to get what you think is right and what I think many of the citizens are thinking, because it seems like I was thinking one thing when I voted, and it sounds like it's not exactly the way it's happening. So that's my only thing here tonight, is to thank you for your work. I appreciate it.
See if you put that up.
Thank you for your comments. Chair, we have no more speakers.
Okay, then I think we can move on to the next agenda item, which is a outreach and engagement communication strategy sort of document. I guess who wants to take this? Member Novea or Member Sala, or for the community outreach and engagement communication strategy?
Yes, okay. We were just talking about the budget. So what you have in front of you, we'll pull it up. So last time I presented a very general presentation on what we had discussed as a committee and along with community engagement. And it was not strategic enough, from what I heard, and that we wanted something more of a plan that includes different components to it. So Juan graciously agreed to help put that together. And he incorporated, and what you have in front of you is he incorporated what we had originally brought last month to the commission. He incorporated in it, but it's more of an overview. It's high level. It doesn't get into the specificity of how some of these things will be accomplished, but it gives us a roadmap of where we want to go and how we want to approach outreach. And a good point to make is just what we just experienced, that people don't really understand what Measure U is and then how the commission works. So I was trying to get our group together before this so we can look at what was presented. I sent it out ahead of time. We just weren't able to. Everyone's so busy. So it's before you, and it's for us to discuss, to either go through it and see if you agree, and even our members that didn't get to weigh in on it, this is the time to give your thoughts and recommendations, or if you don't have any, it's pretty comprehensive. I have not shared this with community engagement, but I don't expect that there will be any concerns over it, because it did incorporate our earlier discussions that we had with them into the strategic plan. So, any questions?
Member McGee?
I did get a chance to review, a little bit late today, but I got in under the wire. So Commissioner Novella, fantastic. I thought, and I'm looking at my comments, just really well-structured and thoughtful. And I think it brings the reader that is not informed along the journey so that they're building on their knowledge base. So well done. So in the interest of time, I did share one or two comments, but I didn't have any issues. It could be a standalone document as is. I had no issues with it. I just had little minor things, as an example, there's a budget table, and it appears to be missing a line item, some content there. So little things like that, but well done. So in the interest of time, I'll just say read my email, and thank you so much. Thank you.
Member Noveda, would you be interested in going over some of the larger points of the document, or would you like to say anything that to introduce it, or no?
I won't. I would totally appreciate any input. This is practically our guiding, document to what we do, and strategically is set for that 3-year. And keeping both the in-the-ground and strategy policy work that I believe needs to be done, or at least consider. When it comes to timelines and budgets, I mentioned on my email to the chair, which is put it for context, understanding that probably some of them will be absorbed by some of the current efforts done by the different departments, and understanding that some of the timelines will probably move due to, the things on how things will change. Again, I will appreciate the opportunity to meet with the rest of the ad hoc committee to really digest, especially the last set of questions that I had, because they're really specific, and that would really dictate specific efforts moving forward. Meaning, that doesn't mean that the strategy cannot be approved, but when it comes to the specifics, that's the things that we then get to, dedicate a little bit more time to develop. And again, I appreciate that work that has been done, because it gives a lot of context and a lot of content and strategy on the direction and where we're heading. And again, I'm here to support. Thank you for appointing me, Mr. Chair, to the ad hoc committee, and I look forward to getting to work with the rest of the committee too.
Thank you for doing that, and I agree that it is comprehensive. So if we can get it approved, then we can go back, because that was my only thing, and I think I mentioned it to you, that we need to, if it's approved, because it is a roadmap, but we need to get the specifics of how are we going to accomplish it, and we can do that with the ad hoc. That would be great. And then at that point, we want to bring in community engagement as well.
And this is one of the points that I had on those questions, the last question, and this is probably an ASH clarification that I will need, is whether or not this needs to go out for approval to the actual city council. If it does, then it then gets a whole different array of things and impacts, and how then it would then be implemented by the different departments. For instance, I'll give you an example. One of the things that I heard constantly, and I'm understanding that there's even a logo that was developed in years past. One of the policy recommendations, again, instead of going and tabling at different community events, is can we have a citywide strategy on a policy recommendation that anything that is funded by this particular bucket will need to have that in their websites, any flyers, or anything in that regard, which that would require city, this is the point where I would need your support, Ash, is whether it will need council approval to accomplish that.
Yeah, so I just want to clarify the assumption. We were kind of assuming, looking at this strategy, that this was a strategy for the commission to implement itself. I do see that, obviously, particularly as it relates to citywide communications, around raising awareness of which programs are funded by Measure U, use of the statement, use of the logo. We would prefer that those not be like an official policy. I will say it's sort of let me back up and say we're happy to kind of direct departments to move in that direction and to give them a toolkit and guidance in terms of how they use that language and the logo and things like that. I'll just be super honest with you, it's super hard to enforce. So I saw there's a compliance review that would come after in year 2. That would consume quite a bit of resources to actually perform. I think, honestly, the best way to implement that is when the departments are up here presenting to you, for them to just hear from you directly, because oftentimes they're just flooded with directives that are coming from the city manager's office or their department heads. And I'll just give you an example. I really probably shouldn't. I was in a room last week in a meeting of folks. We were asked to raise our hands of how many of us had read a new policy. And so when we get a new policy, oftentimes we're required to log in to a system and acknowledge that we read the policy. So everybody is basically required to read these new policies when they're released. And like, I was the only one raising my hand, but I had actually read the policy and like understood what was in it. And so I'm not asking for like your sympathy or anything. I just want to help provide a little bit of context that sort of folks are just flooded with requests and directives at the department level. And so these things can be hard to enforce. And I think just hearing from you all directly about the importance of raising awareness to residents and community members about which programs are funded by Measure U, I think that can go a long way in terms of kind of being a carrot as opposed to a stick. But yeah, I would definitely back away from, I prefer not for it to be a policy. I will just say as kind of a neutral perspective, you could ask the city council to provide that direction to the city manager and departments. I think we, as staff, prefer it didn't get to that level. And so basically would ask for kind of your collaboration in terms of helping us to just voluntarily implement that without a policy. So that's on the logo and the statement. There are a few things I kind of am seeing around budget. Hopefully some of those things can fall into discretionary budgets that offices have. But I wouldn't know, like, we'd have to get into like specific items on budget, and potentially some of those would require council approval if the funding wasn't available within a department. I don't know if there's any other questions
No.
from a staff perspective.
Yeah, I was going to say what you said, Ash, and that is, I think the first time that logo was developed and we rolled it out and we told everyone, some departments adopted it and use it, and for the most part, most departments do not. But his point is well taken. Like today, if we could have asked the fire department, if we're going to give you funds for your EMT and your girls' camp program, we want to see you use the Measure U logo. Were you willing to do that? Oh, yes, okay. So, and then we just monitor it, and if next year they don't do it, then they get penalized for that. That's the control we have over getting them to use the logo, but, so that's important. So here going forward, we should ask that question, do you use the logo to the departments that they're gonna come and present to us still, right? We have a few.
Yes, there are many other departments queued up.
Okay, so we can ask them that. Are you using the Measure U logo to identify the programs that Measure U is funding? If they say no, well, we would like you to, because the people don't understand how Measure U, blah, blah, blah. And the other thing is going to city council. We would go to city council if we needed the fund, if we're asking for money. But there's a way we can go around that. If this gets approved and we really want to push for monies, we can present that portion of it, not the whole strategic plan, but just that portion saying, we need some money. We can go to city council, talk to our city council person, and put it on the agenda and have them support giving us whatever we're asking for and the rationale for it. So, and if we're going to do that, we have to do it before it would be under discretionary, and they would have money there to approve it. But that's how it would be. I think that's the easiest way to do it versus presenting the whole proposal, and then it'll get into the weeds, and then and we'll lose. What we really want is to get some funds that we've never had before, except for when we did the outreach, the community focus groups. Measure U has never had any kind of funds to do what is expected of us in the community. So that's it.
Yeah, I would just say that just because you do it softly, doesn't mean it won't happen. Like, for example, all the metric stuff that's happening is not something that was determined by city council to be like, you will, departments, do, like, so they're pretty open to working in that soft way. So I think we can make it happen. The other thing would be, in terms of the budgets, I would just go maybe a little bit more like line item-y. So it's like you have like 3,000 to 6,000 estimated annual costs for printed materials and like identification items. If you can give maybe a little bit more examples of like what that might actually be and like, where are you getting this estimate from? You're probably likely to get maybe a little bit more, okay, yeah, that seems fine from discretionary funds. They'll just like to see that more, so it doesn't feel like it's so arbitrary. That's my only feedback. When I went over it, I think this is great. This is a perfect move. I think writing it down is even like step one, just so we can have something to deliberate on and like think about. There were some like commitments that like we as a group have to make as well, right? Like I saw in here the attendance commitment, for example, and get maybe some jackets, which would be cool. Get some Measure U jackets, some swag for this committee. That'd be sick. Yeah, I mean, that would be fun. So if we show up in like whatever hat or whatever, that would be great. I think it would inspire people to go as well. So I love this. I think it's a great plan. Good job. I don't see any other hands up. Does anyone else have some final comments on this? I don't know if we do we actually have to vote for this? I mean,
If the commission wants to formally adopt this strategy, it should do so. I would take a vote on it.
okay.
What?
You did submit a speaker slip, but there's still,
Yeah, we haven't decided on anything yet. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious if we had to. Okay, so Member Cook.
I just wanted to, it doesn't seem like we're ready to vote yet. There's too much in here that I think needs to be changed.
Yeah, so the other thought could be giving feedback to the ad hoc committee who could then come back at a future meeting with an updated version that the committee could then vote on.
Yeah, another option would be if you have that feedback now ready, to say it, and then we can agree that the next version would incorporate that, but it would be adopted. I don't know if there's really a rush to it. I don't know. Maybe the ad hoc should speak to that, but
If we can get the feedback now, so if we get the feedback now and we make the changes, we have to present it at the next meeting to adopt it. Is that correct?
well, I mean, this can also be a living document, right? Like, just because we vote on it now doesn't mean we can't make changes to it later, or even, I would say, informally modify it, right? Just based off of how we act as a committee and what that ad hoc does. So I'm not too opposed to just voting this, being like, yes, this looks good, unless people have opinions or want to state them, but like to give those opinions and then we modify it. Basically, you guys can modify it as an ad hoc, and then we can maybe bring it back next meeting if that's what people are more comfortable with. But it'd actually be my opinion that we just, unless there are strong objections, to just move forward. But Member Miller, if you have thoughts around this, then I'd love to hear them.
Well, yeah, it just seems like, making, the language in here is we're going to make a recommendation to council to fund something, and we're going to make requirements of various departments. I just, like, if we're voting on that, we're saying we approve of that, and I don't know, given what Ash is telling us, I don't know that it's a good idea to, it sounds like you feel like the vote isn't really binding. I mean, I guess I'm not really sure what we're talking about here.
Yeah, okay, so I'll say real quickly, I think what I'm trying to say is that there is feedback that we can give right now. I think I've already given some. I think Ash has given some as well, and I think it was heard by the author, to basically modify it to be to language is not like checking it and like having those, I mean, unless the ad hoc disagrees, but I don't think there was a disagreement here, where we should make that more of a soft recommendation, not so much going to council and being like, can you mandate that anything funded? So that would be something that would be changed. I think I saw it be written down that like, maybe the line items for the budget could be more specified, but this is just like, I think it's an open time to just give feedback if you have it. In terms of what we vote for, yeah, it would be, I don't know, what would you say? Like, it would be like part of the commission's plan, but that doesn't mean that it can't be updated, is what I was trying to say. Yeah, or modified later if we feel that something's not working.
I guess I'm not sure why we would vote on it knowing that it's going to be changed. Like,
I see. So in the past, we have frequently done something where we would give notes to an author of a document and say, if we trust you to make the changes that we have conveyed on, like, live through discussion, such that we don't have to, like, have another agenda item next month to, like, review the document again. This has become useful just to speed things along a little bit. Does that answer your question? Yeah. But if the committee feels that they want to see the next draft, then, speak up and say so, because that's fine too.
Yeah, and I just want to state that what is, people are recommending, they're minor things. We're not really talking about going to city council. We're saying the budget, eventually, if we're asking for money, we will have to go to city council and ask for that, but that doesn't preclude us from approving the overall plan. And then the issue with the departments and the logo, we can modify that and not make it a policy. Those are little cosmetic changes to the overall plan. I personally would like to see it approved tonight, because we've been twiddling around with this plan for several months now, and so March will be our next meeting, and that's where, we can spend another month, 2 months dealing with this, how we're going to get out and interact with the community, just delaying it. So the recommendations are small enough that it's not changing the overall scope of what's being recommended. They're just minor modifications that I feel confident will incorporate, and it'll embody what people are saying, and we can go forward with this being adopted. So that's my preference, but whatever the commission decides, it's fine. We can always tweak it and reintroduce it in March.
Member Pascal?
Can I move to approve the plan subject to the modifications that were suggested?
Is there a second?
I will second.
So we have a first and a second. Before we take a vote, is there any other feedback on the document that people would want to incorporate? If not, I just wanted to make sure.
As staff, I would just be curious to know, like, what would you expect to see on your March agenda related to this item, if anything at all? So for example, the strategy is finalized, like, do you want an ongoing status update?
Like an update from the ad hoc?
Yeah, okay. The one issue there is that at some point that ad hoc will need to sunset, and so you're not there yet, but just something to consider, so.
Do we know the date of when, like, it would be a year for that ad hoc specifically?
I believe it's closer to the summer. I can pull that up right now.
Okay, so we have time, and we can say it's like, okay, a new year, figure out the news. Yeah, I don't know. Okay. All right, then I think we're good to take a vote. Let's do a call on this.
That was a motion by Commissioner
So we
Pichal.
have to hear from the public comment?
Oh, yes.
Yes, we
Apologies.
can hear from the,
Apologies.
but who was the second? I wasn't clear.
Member Drofsky, I think.
I heard two over here and then.
Member Drofsky was second.
Is the second. Okay, thank you.
But yeah, let's hear from the
Take
public
public.
first.
We'll go ahead and take public speakers. Lambert?
And while Mr. Davis is coming up, I'll just say, sorry. The Community Engagement and Outreach Ad Hoc Committee will need to sunset by June 15th. So we will probably have that on your May 18th meeting because I'm not sure, I think your June meeting will come after June 15th and we don't want it to,
So when you say sunset, we're done. But what if the work isn't done?
exactly. So that was kind of what I was trying to, but go ahead, sorry.
Okay.
Can we just
Yes.
hear from our public and then we can continue since we called him up already? Lambert?
I work with the millennials, so I'm very patient. Couple of things I heard. First of all, I heard Ash Regani say that the staff was supposed to read a policy, and when they asked him to raise their hand, he was the only one. Shout out to you for that. However, it shows that the staff did not read the policy. To me, they should not be paid for that. If you're supposed to read a policy, read it. The other thing is, this is 2026. You had the fire department here, and that was a great suggestion by Commissioner Sala. They should still be emailed that they should use the Measure U funding. Why do they get a pass? Because they left. And by the way, I did tell my family that I probably would be the last one in this audience. And that doesn't make sense to me. There's a community engagement director. Where is she at? Where is the Department of Finance? Where are they? Do you need me to come down here and you can pay me to tell you how to do it? It's not difficult. People have lost their way. They think this money is their personal money. If you ran your household like you run this city, you would be homeless out there. We would see you out there. You have to be more fiscal responsible. Just because they left with all this modern technology, you can take Measure U and email it to them. The millennials have already texted me, hey, we're waiting for you. And that's just a basic, hey, we're waiting for you. But I said, no, I'm gonna hang in there because I have something major to announce tonight that will inspire you from a fiscal responsibility.
Thank you for your comments, Chair. We have no more speakers.
Okay, then the only thing I wanted to add before we take the vote is that Ash kind of just whispered to me that it may be a good idea to put, if we're going to ask for money, in our March 24th presentation to budget and audit. So we should just.
Sorry, your March 24th presentation is to the PNPE, Personnel and Public Employees Committee. That's on your annual report. I was referring to budget recommendations that, yeah, like would probably be in May, I believe.
Okay, so not that presentation then. Okay, so we have time. But anyway, let's do the call.
All right, so we've got a motion by Member Pashal and then the second by Jarofsky. Commissioners, if you can please unmute. Vice Chair McGee.
Yes.
Commissioner Smith is absent. Commissioner Sala.
Yes.
Commissioner Cook.
Yes.
Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnston.
Yes.
Commissioner Goris is absent. Commissioner Novello.
Yes.
Commissioner Jarofsky.
Yes.
Commissioner Pashal.
Yes.
Commissioner Frye Lucas is absent. Commissioner Rosa is absent. And Chair Georgioff.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes.
We can move on to the last item. Try to make it quick. The Measure U budget recommendations. Ash, if you want to enter this one.
I actually don't have much to discuss. You heard the update from Pete earlier. This is a standing item that just allows you to continue discussing how you want to approach your budget recommendations this year. And so if there's no, well, I'll kind of let you all kind of discuss that, but if there's no updates to discuss, then we can move on.
Does anyone on the committee have any thoughts on this, or? Okay, if not, we can probably just punt it. I think we've heard that there are going to be more updates on the 3rd. Pay attention. And let's try to get your notes down for the meeting that we have next month, and that way we can discuss them there. Okay, great.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll have this exact same item next month, and you can discuss whatever is released on the 3rd during that item.
Fantastic. We can move on. This is to let's see, we kind of already did ad hoc, so let's go ahead and skip those. Actually, well, the metrics ad hoc still probably needs to create a better recommendation for like going through all the metrics that exist in the dashboard and coming up with better ROIs. Like, for example, we heard today, I didn't know the full picture, so I didn't want to grill them, and but like $3 million plus if we add so there was also the grant money split over 3 years, so actually there's like $4 million for 10 hired paramedics. Seems like it should be easy peasy, like 4 million to 10 people. I don't know all the details, but like that seems quite high, and one could be a woman, and that would make it 10% female. So to me, that seems like a very high amount of money for the return we were getting. I didn't want to say that because I wasn't sure, again, all the details, and maybe I need more details on that, and it feels a little hostile. But like that sort of stuff, I think the metrics department, or the metrics ad hoc, needs to sort of like sit down and think about. And I would love if people can also spend some time with the metrics dashboard and come to conclusions. I know Member Fry Lucas, who's not here currently, has like a bunch of them written down. I think we should all have stuff written down for this. Cool. Okay, and then I think public comments for matters not on the agenda would be next.
I have a community engagement outreach committee. Does that?
Oh, we kind of already discussed that, yeah, so
Okay,
we'll just
cool,
skip that one.
perfect. Then we could do member comments next, or unless you want to take public first, it's up to you.
Are there any member comments on, actually, yeah, Member Cook.
I think we can, I'll close with this. I think we can collectively agree that most of our budgetary recommendations are getting ignored by city council. You can speculate why, it's hard to track, commingle with general fund, blah, blah, blah. But TLDR, it's mostly getting ignored. So, a citizen-initiated ballot measure takes 10% of the registered voters in the city of Sacramento. That's 30,000 people in Sacramento. If we do 30 volunteers at 8 hours a week with 10 signatures per hour, we can get 30,000 signatures in about 3 months. I'm putting that out there to this group. If that resonates with anyone, let's talk. Thank you.
Don't you have a baby?
I do have a baby, but
Just want to throw it out there.
I care about the city so much, so.
I think that's a good thought, but I mean, it's projected, right? So it's like you got to be boots on the ground to see that. But I think that any effort is better than no effort.
Yeah.
So.
I love the map.
Sleep on it, get back to me. Thanks.
Okay, yeah, let's move to public comments, matters not on the agenda.
Yes, we
That
have one.
includes this, by the way, if anyone wants to discuss further.
We have one speaker, Lambert. For draft minutes? Like, you guys technically didn't. Would you want to say that?
February 8th
Yeah,
was
I
the
can-
Super Bowl. February 7th, the millennials came to me and said, we got a way to make this thing go global. And they know I'm listening. It took them a while to get me with social media, but they got me. They said it costs $1 million to get an ad. They know I didn't have that. I said, well, what's the plan? They said, we got a group, an international group, and they love your website, to the bayandbackcheesecake.com. And I said, well, what's the gimmick? The gimmick is the name. To the Bay and Back, and the Super Bowl was in the Bay Area. This is outside the thinking. And I said, what's my role? My role is, and my brother, is to get the cheesecakes to the event. That's easy. You know what happened? And we got it in writing. There were people through social media and emails contacting us from all over the world. Shout out to the millennials. Then they went a step further. Somebody was at that event that was from another country, and they approached me and said, hey, we would like to invite you to the global summit of business. I was stunned. And the young people pulled it off. We never left the room. So now our business, our Mother's Cheesecakes, have gone viral globally. We can prove it. It's going to create jobs for years to come, long after I'm gone. Because a computer cannot make a cheesecake. You have to have a crew. And I have let you hear our granddaughter's song, and that's gone global too. So there's a way to get out of debt. You just have to treat it like it's your money.
Thank you for your comments, Chair. We have no more speakers.